Hey boys, welcome back to Kanode Knows. This week on the show, I'm very excited. It's one of my favorite kind of episodes, speaking to somebody who I have known and looked up to in the industry for 16 years. Damn. And even before that, he was doing stuff. So Will Stroud is on the show this week, and he's had a tremendous impact on BMX, from cinema, Verde, those kind of things, back to doing some Damn Kids with Chris Doyle. Damn Kids is the name of a DK video back in the day, and then there was the System video, which was pioneering, and the fact that it was like two companies under the same roof that just this is great. This is full of stories, and yeah, we spent 3 hours together this morning, so I think that you will enjoy it, and you're gonna have a phenomenal time listening to it while you drive or clean your house or ride your bike. I don't know. What do you do while you listen to this? I listen to podcasts while I walk in the morning. And at night. Dude, I've been going on walks. I digress. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, leave a review. We're growing, baby. This is the most momentum a BMX podcast has ever had, dude, of all time. It's the best show in the world. That's enough of me. Here's Will Stroud. Kanode Knows. Hi, Will Stroud.
Hey, Bobby. What's up, man?
Welcome. Oh, shit. You're on the wrong side. Let's go over here. This way, it's an optical illusion, and then I can be looking at you. I guess for audio, it doesn't matter at all. Hey, good morning. What you doing today?
Oh, today I am going to, here in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have Hopscotch Festival. It's a music festival where it's like a venue takeover, where it's just like bands playing and all the music venues all day. And then they have like the night shows, which you have to have wristbands to get into, but all the day shows are free. So I'm going to go check out some of the cool free live music here in a little bit.
Nice. With the kiddos?
The kiddos are not with me this weekend, so going with my wife and some friends this time. So
yeah. Sick. Yeah, it was. I was listening to your Come Up interview this morning, and I got reminded of that era of divorces. Like,
oh yeah,
that was like news back then in BMX. Like, did you hear Nathan Williams and Corey Martinez? And I didn't know that you were involved in that. It's like everything comes in waves for people. I don't know, but I'm glad to hear you got a wife now, and how old would your kids be now?
So my kids are 14 and 16. They're both in high school, which is crazy to think that I have two high schoolers, 9th and 10th grade.
Do they hate your guts? I feel like 14 and 16-year-old hate their parents' guts.
It is the age where you're starting to be a rebellious teenager, but I'm lucky I have really good relationships with both my kids. They're great kids, and yeah, they're awesome.
That's
so
amazing.
I'm lucky. Feel lucky.
Good for you, man. I wanna make kids. That's on the agenda pretty soon.
Do it, man. Yeah, it's a great time.
How old were you when you did it? When you had a baby?
Let's see. So I was 28 when I had kids. When I first kid, yeah. I think I was 28. Yeah.
I feel like that's a really good age. I feel like I'm behind the ball, but you know, some dudes do it when they're 18, and then life is great. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Let's just take life as it comes at you. You know, don't force.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You don't have to adhere to the social norms of having kids exactly your 20s or whatever. People are doing it all times of their life now, even in their 40s and 50s. So I agree with that.
I'd like to start current day. Like, how is business? In the Creative Business Podcast clip that I just listened to, which was a couple of years ago, you mentioned that you had a exciting project that you were on a NDA about. And is that what it's called? NDA.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm trying to remember which one that might have been. It was probably something in the biotech or pharma world, but I don't remember that specific project I was talking about.
Yeah.
But I'll just talk generally like what I'm doing now business-wise. So in January 2020, I started a new creative agency called Press Record Media with a business partner, my friend Ryan Timms. And we had the vision to build out like a creative studio that's kind of run by like BMXers and skaters. Ryan, my business partner, he was a former pro rollerblader, so he kind of has a very similar background to what I come from. He was pro rollerblader for about 10 years, so he did all the same stuff we did, traveling, filming video parts, you know, living in the streets. So we hit it off. We had good chemistry. We had a lot of the same camera gear, and we were, at the time, I was still working in BMX. He was working for a bigger agency, and I was working for him. He would hire me to do work on his agency projects. I would hire him as a shooter or producer on some of my projects. So we started working on each other's projects, hit it off really well, worked really well together on set, and kind of had similar vision of how we like things filmed and edited. So we started talking, like we spent a lot of time in the car working on this one big campaign down in Charlotte, where we were driving, several times a month down for these big multi-day shoots. So we spent a lot of time together in the car and hotels, and just just a conversation. We were kind of like playing what ifs, and he had the idea to start a new agency, and I was kind of at a point where I was ready for something new. So in January of 2020, we formed Press Record Media, not knowing that in March the whole world would shut down. So life throws you curveballs, and especially in business, everything is there's black swans right around the corner at any given second. So we ended up doing it. Luckily, we took the business kind of slow. We didn't like immediately hire employees or get office space. We started slow. Like he was working out of his basement. I was working out of here in my house as well. And we didn't have any employees that first year. We were just kind of trying to build the business, build up our clients, pull in all of our resources from my freelance career, his freelance career, and just combine everything together. So when COVID hit, we kind of just pivoted and we were like, okay, let's just put our head down for a year, reach out to a bunch of folks, try to get some stuff lined up for when the world opens back up that we can go make some videos. And that's exactly what we did. It was a little bit harder to get started just because, again, the world was shut down at such a weird time.
Yeah. Can I ask you about that part?
Of course, yeah.
I'm very curious. When you're generating business, doing the outreach, like what literally are you doing? Are you looking up businesses and cold calling? Like how are you drumming up business when you're just starting?
Yeah, so it's a combination of reaching out to people I already know, like existing contacts, people that I've worked with. Maybe it's been like a few years since I've worked with them on anything. Just kind of letting them know, like, hey, I'm starting this new thing. Well, I realize the world's shut down right now. People can't interact. You can't do stuff in person. But when the world does open back up, I'd love to start working on some fresh content. So that's kind of generally speaking how we open up conversations with like older contacts, and then approaching new people. It's kind of similar language, just more like, hey, we're starting this new agency. These are our goals. We like telling story videos, documentary branded content is kind of our shtick.
Did you have like a product, like a specific type of video that you would pitch as the product for Press Record Media? Like you just mentioned storytelling. Like was there, you know what I mean? Like a flagship, end product that you sell to people?
Honestly, at first we didn't have a specific, like a very specific product. Now we're 5 years in and we have a little bit better like products kind of figured out that's better for like product market fit. So yes, now we do. When we launched, it was kind of like, hey, we'll make your videos, whatever you want. Everything's custom, and then as we evolved, of course, videos tend to fall in different buckets of like what customers normally want. So of course we've refined that over the years. But at first it was kind of more like, hey, let us make your content. Everything we make is custom. We want to make, content that will provide value to your brand and your customers, and it can be whatever you want it to be. It could be a bunch of 15-second videos. It could be a bunch of 30-second videos. It could be a bunch of 5-minute videos. It's kind of like no rules here. It's kind of more just like custom tailored to like different businesses and different.
And when you're like price will vary on every client, but that's the thing that I've found the most interesting is like something that I was charging $200 for a couple of years ago when I first started is worth like you could charge $5,000. So it's all like based. Do you do like, you've obviously heard the term value-based pricing, but I'm sure some people haven't, like that are listening, like where if this video does well for X company and X company sells this many things, they're going to make $20,000. So this video is worth, $6,000 or whatever. Like how were you pricing stuff? Were you doing the thing where you're doing a spreadsheet and line iteming, gear rental for the day, blah, 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 like all that?
Yeah, to be honest, we have like some back end ways to like calculate pricing on like how we should like kind of like pricing tiers. So a lot of the stuff that we kind of keep internal, it's not necessarily, we don't necessarily share all that info with our customers. Not to be like shady or anything, but there's certain things we do. You kind of have to like hide profits in like little buckets when you can. But broadly speaking, yes, everything kind of falls into a few different buckets. And like I said, at first, everything was so custom where a client they'd come to us with a specific ask and we would just make that video. It wasn't like we offered this, this, and this. But now it's more like we have a couple different packages, like your 90-second video that has some cut downs and a bunch of photography. It can all be shot in one day, edited in like a couple weeks. And then it kind of goes up the ladder to like, 2-minute brand film, live on your LinkedIn. And then all the way up to like the bigger, more like a like 8 to 10 minute documentary that would have a bunch of like smaller cut downs and a bunch of photography supporting it. So we tend to think of like every video we make is we try to turn it into like a mini campaign for that brand. Because if you think about it, you make a video and they post a video, and then that's kind of all they have to show for it. It kind of goes down the, we call, the internet garbage disposal quickly. But if you have a bunch of content that supports that piece, whatever it is, whether it's just a bunch of photography, like on-set photography, a lot of behind-the-scenes photography to support that piece, it kind of gets a little bit more life and a little bit more traction, and it gets more folks' eyeballs on it if you have like micro content to support that other
feels
content.
Like a way better conversation with the client. Like, okay, we're not just going to give you one video. This is a marketing campaign for the next 3 months.
Exactly.
So what's been the least amount that you've charged for a project, and what's been the highest for a single
question.
project?
Yeah. So, just like full transparency. So we're a business. We have 4 full-time employees, studio space, and then we have a handful of freelancers. So, it's not, we can't really work on like the rock bottom freelancer rates anymore. And I don't even want to do that anymore at this point in my career. So, the cheapest project, like we do a great whole crew out there, video.
You cut out a little bit. Hold on.
Okay.
Come on back. Wait a second. It's coming. It comes in waves. You are frozen. I'm going to pause it.
Clear. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. This might be better phone Wi-Fi, but I don't know exactly where we cut off, but I asked about the pricing, and you can't do freelance rates anymore.
Right.
And the studio and all that.
Yep. So our pricing structure is a little different than like what a freelancer would charge, obviously, since we're an agency. So like our base rate, just for us to come shoot a project for someone and not necessarily do any editing, we'll show up for, between $4,000 and $5,000 a day. And that's a crew of 4 people, all of our gear and whatever it takes to get us there if it's like a local shoot. And then we've done shoots, and then on the high end, if we're doing like a multi-day shoot for like a bigger client where we're shooting a few days and traveling around, to different markets, we've done week-long shoots with a bunch of like editing deliverables to come after it, upwards of like $75K. So it's just a wide swing of depending on what a client needs. And, the size of the organization has a lot to do with that. Like right now we're working on this big brand film for a biotech company here in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. And that one's going to take us, 4 months to make. And we're traveling to like 6 or 7 different cities to make it. So that one's like, towards the higher end of that scope. So, we do projects of all scopes and sizes, but I really enjoy the bigger ones because it gives you more time to, create something special. So that's kind of what we're doing now for one of the the biggest clients for one of our big projects.
It feels like making a big BMX project like you have your whole life. I'm curious about your learning curve for learning to charge what you're worth. Like, did you have a period of time where you were doing shit for way too cheap or free, and then somebody taught you about like how to value this stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as like towards the back half of my BMX career, when I was doing like BMX videos, 80% of my time I was doing mostly BMX. And then that other 20%, I was kind of like hunting for like corporate jobs as a freelancer. So I kind of got a taste for what it could be like to charge real rates, like in, like a pharma or biotech world. And I was like, oh shit, this is a lot different than the BMX world. So I got a taste of it, but never really done it like on a larger scale until I started working like with my business partner with his the former agency he was working at. I would he was a producer on their digital team, and they would they had salespeople in different markets that would sell these big video packages, and we just got to like make the stuff. So his sales team would like communicate with him like, hey, we sold this project for X amount, and so we would kind of get a taste of what the sales team was able to charge for like a larger corporate shoot through like a real agency. So that kind of helped me understand better pricing tier structure, how it works, at least in the corporate video world outside of, BMX. So that kind of opened my eyes to like what the potential is to start an agency and target these types of companies that need content. So that's kind of a big reason I wanted to, just say screw it and give it a try.
That's what's up. It puts it in perspective too. Like I remember like my first couple non-BMX video shoots, and I was like, wait a second, how much?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, BMX is pretty small. Hey there, BMX enthusiasts. Ready to upgrade your ride? Introducing Dance Comp, your ultimate online destination for all things BMX. That's the sound of a bike revving up. From top-of-the-line handlebars, do BMX bikes rev up? Thanks, ChatGPT. From top-of-the-line handlebars to durable tires, helmets, and chains. That's legit. Dance Comp is everything you need to take your biking experience to the next level. And for all the parents out there, rest assured knowing that Dance Comp isn't just about fun, it's also about fitness too. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, head over to dancecomp.com today and gear up for the ride of your life. Dance Comp, where quality meets performance on every pedal stroke. I love Burn Slow, and you will too once you go to burnslow.co and buy some stuff. They've been supporting the show for a while now, and I'm super grateful, and I legit wear Burn Slow shirts 5 days a week. Burn Slow is a rider-owned media and clothing company. They support some of the dopest riders in the game, specifically Casey Starling. He's amazing. Fuck, dude, what do you say about Burn Slow that I haven't said? You know what I'm saying? Get this shirt. It's fucking sick. Get the fruit shirt. I love the fruit shirt. I just learned from Brett Silva that they partnered up with a local nonprofit to give food away and made that fruit shirt. I didn't know why the fruit shirt was made, but it's so dope. So I wore that for weeks without knowing what it was, the story behind it, and there's an amazing story behind it. So I don't know. Burnslow is dope, and you should go to burnslow.co and support them since they support this show. Okay, goodbye. What do you have to say, Trip? You like Burnslow?
Yeah, Dad, I fucking love it.
That's cool. All right, have a good day, guys. Have a good day. What the fuck? This episode is brought to you by Unity Ride Shop. Unity Ride Shop is a local bike shop here in Phoenix off 43rd Avenue in Bethany Home, ran by and owned by a homie named Randy. And he opened the shop not because he wants to make a bunch of money, but because he's truly passionate about BMX, and he's done a lot for the community, just general community, not even the sponsored riders, just putting on community bike rides and constantly like hooking people up. I hung out at the shop one day and I saw like five different people come in and get a little bit of a hookup, and it's pretty cool. He genuinely cares. He's not in it for the money and stocks up on all the cool shit that you wish was local. So Unity is a place to go. Yeah, I'm stoked on them, stoked on what they're doing for the scene here in Phoenix, and hopefully do a lot more with them in the future. But they support the shit out of this show. So therefore, if you're in Arizona, you should probably support the shit out of Unity. I just got myself, what did I buy? I bought some Colt AK bars and Fiend. I'm gonna do a bike check, but I got myself some bars and forks the other day, and they I had a good time doing it. Even played with some fingerboards and finger bikes. Those things are popping. But yeah, that's Unity, man. Go to unityrideshop.com or go visit them off 43rd Avenue in Bethany Home. Thanks, guys. So that's cool. I don't want to. I don't know. Fuck them. The people who listen, I'm curious about this shit. So I want to know. It's really cool. The next thing that I want to know about this business is how you feel about the quantity of potential clients out there. Do you think it's competitive? Do you think there's a whole bunch of money out there that's ready to be made by people who can make videos? What's your feel, especially lately this past year, on the opportunities that are out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something we talk about almost every day in our office is what's next? Where are we going next here? And we're lucky that we're a smaller agency. So we have 5 or 6 really good clients that keep us really busy and full. And I kind of prefer it that way rather than having 100 really small fish that expect a lot and don't want to pay much. So the way that our business is built, we can kind of thrive off having a smaller amount of accounts that do more business with us. So, and those are more fun to manage because you kind of get to do multiple projects with these brands and get to know their business and what kind of content performs well for them. So we can always do a better job for a client if we work for them more than just one video and then they go away. So when clients come back and they're repeat customers and we get to keep making content, all that earlier content kind of supports everything we make moving forward. So that's been something that we've really enjoyed doing. Getting to that's when you get to see more of the ROI from the client side. They get to see the videos work and they are getting eyeballs on their products or whatever they're selling. So, yeah, I think the potential is unlimited. I really do, especially where we're positioned geographically. We're in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, which is the largest research park in the world. So there's a lot of medical, a lot of biotech, a lot of big pharma, a lot of stuff going on. So I tell Ryan, my business partner, every day that the clients are out there. We just have to find them and build those authentic relationships with people over a period of time. And then they buy when they're ready to buy, not when we're ready to buy. We're always ready to go. We're always ready to make videos. But if you think about it, you can't pressure someone or rush them into something they're not ready to do, especially when they're going to be spending, this kind of money to make content. So we just try to meet as many people as we can, do right by them. build those relationships. So when these clients are ready, they come back to us when it's time to produce videos. That's kind of how it's been my whole career. Even before I was doing more of this agency work, even in BMX, I kind of felt like that's how it was. Like I would just have like friends or homies in the industry, and I would just always try to be cool with everybody and do right by people. And then when they needed projects or needed stuff filmed, hopefully they would reach out to me. So that's honestly how I've gotten the most opportunities in my life, is just through like people I've known for a long time that just keep hooking it up for me.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Like I see it in real estate, I see it in videography, I see it in, I mean, it applies to every industry. The more people you know and are friends with, and the more opportunity that comes. It's an interesting thing. Like this real estate stuff, dude. I'm like, because I've been making content for real estate coaches for the past, I don't know, 8 years, and it all boils down to just talk to people. That's it.
Yep.
The whole business is talking to people.
And it's funny too, over the past like 5 years, I've gotten a lot more into like what you're talking about, like the real estate investing and just like investing in general. It's become like a big interest and a big passion of mine since COVID, just learning a lot more about that world and trying to find out, you know, invest now for the future, find things that'll your future self will thank you for. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but you have to have the education and the knowledge of how to go after those opportunities, you know. So that's been fun to learn
or
about
at least know somebody who has that education and can kind of coach you. Do you have investments going on?
Yeah. I'm investing, like I'm researching investing pretty much daily, and then I'm gotten pretty big in the stock market and the crypto market since 2020, and that's you know, extremely volatile. But I've you know, it's just been fun to learn more about how the markets work and find those opportunities, and you know, learn risk management, learn ways to, you know, have passive income. Has been really interesting. So I'm learning about it every day, and I'm having a lot of fun learning. You know, depends on what the market's telling you. So right now, you know, the market is kind of like, it's kind of blowing up right now, but you know, try to always look for the opportunities when, you know, it's like the Warren Buffett approach. What's his, you know, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. So I try to take a little bit of his approach, and, you know, just try to, you know, not be too aggressive, not have too much risk, and then, you know, wait for opportunities to get in and out of position. So, you know.
So did you see that he just cashed out all of his Bank of America stuff? Like,
and Apple, right? He sold like half of his stake in Apple and like about $1 billion in Bank of America. So seems
what
like
does he know that we don't know, dude? That's so spooky.
Yeah. I remember he did something similar right before the financial crisis of 2008. I remember he had a lot of money sitting on the sidelines and then just bought up everything when it was pennies on the dollar. So it makes you wonder like what's coming.
Yeah.
Knowing that guys like him are going cash heavy right now.
Yeah. What, dude? Yeah, we're living in turbulent times. I feel like you mentioned Black Swan earlier, and I was like, I'm pretty confident there's going to be one or two in the next couple of months. You know? It's nutty. Okay, let's talk about BMX.
Yeah.
You like BMX, Will Stroud?
I love BMX, man. I've had so many great opportunities in my, you know, 30 years of riding BMX. From starting as a rider to get to be a filmer, to get to work with a lot of cool brands and travel the world and have all these great experiences working with some of the best riders who became a lot of my great friends. And yeah, I am so grateful that I found BMX, you know, in my teenage years, and can't believe, like, would never believe the places it would take me if you told me now.
So, yeah, for real, right? It's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of BMX. You know, let's start with there's so much that we could talk about with you, and I want to start with cinema, because I never really understood like the I don't know how to phrase it, where cinema's from, like how it started, and the story of cinema, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So let's see. In 2009, I got a phone call from one of my best friends, Corey Muth. Shout out to Corey Muth and Steve Bundeck, two of my really good friends that have taken me on a crazy ride with all their businesses they started. So let's see, I think it was in 2007 or 2008, those guys started Verde and Duo, the two brands. So it was Verde, the bike company. Duo was like the parts company. It was like grips and tires and seats. And they started Greenhouse Distribution, which is a distribution company. It was in Columbus, Ohio. And they wanted to start one more brand to kind of round out the family of brands. So they approached, or they told me that they were going to make a wheel company, cinema wheel company. And they had already talked to Garrett at this was back when he was still riding in the Detours. Garrett was on board, Corey Martinez was on board, and then Ian Schwartz was on board. So that was the original three team. So that was 2009 that they kind of like soft launched it. They had a team, they didn't have any product. but they knew they wanted to build this. And then I think it was 2010, we got our first batch of products. And that's when they asked me if I wanted to be the team manager and filmer for that brand. And I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. This sounds great. You got Garrett on board. You got Corey Martinez on board, Ian Schwartz. I had worked with those guys all a little bit at that point on just other various projects, but never got to like really do it up with them. So that was 2010. And then we added, let's see, in 2010, I hit up Sean Sexton, Chase T. Hart, and let's see who else. Let's see, Dan Lacey and Dakota came a few years later.
I'm trying to think of the Phoenix video.
Yeah, the Phoenix video. So that would have been the original 5 guys. So that was Corey, Nathan, Garrett, D. Hart, and Sexton. Those are the original 5 guys.
That's it.
Yeah, those 5 guys. And that was a lot of fun, man. That era was just so much fun. Kind of like coming out of the gate with this fresh brand and this awesome team. Those guys, you know, they were all kind of like even veterans back then. They'd kind of been in the scene and kind of, you know, build up their legendary status. So yeah, that Phoenix trip in 2010 was our first team trip with the full team, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh shit, I was gonna ask that. That is so legendary. Like it's imprinted in a lot of our brains. The cinema in Phoenix, the music, it was refreshing, and just seeing like a juggernaut. It was maybe the first like juggernaut style team. You know, that's probably not true, but for me, in my experience, I was like, what? Garrett Reynolds and Chase D. Hart are on the same team? Like this is crazy. And Sean Sexton, obviously all the boys, but yeah.
Yeah, I felt so lucky to get to have that whole team as a squad and, you know, start this new brand with, kick things off. So yeah, that was the start of it in I think 2009 soft launch. So we actually, before we made that Phoenix video, we actually did make a promo for Interbike where I had gone on a few trips with Corey and Nathan and Garrett. And then I think I just got like homie footage from like D Hart and Sexton. And we put together this like little 5-minute promo that played at Interbike the year before. And then we did the Phoenix trip. So that was like kind of how we really kicked things off. And then from there, you know, the brand had it was growing pretty steadily. And then we added a few dudes. We added Bruno Hoffman and then Dan Lacey to have some guys over in Europe, and that was great. Got to bring those guys on a few trips in the States. And from there, yeah, man, it was just like a whirlwind. It was about like I was with cinema from 2009 to 2021. The very end of 2021 is when I stepped down because my new business, Press Record, was kind of taking up more time. I wanted to go all in on building that. So I had a good 12-year run.
Yeah, dude, that's a run.
Getting to help build the team, travel, make all the videos with the guys. Yeah, man, I had like endless good times with those guys. I couldn't even like know where to even start, but we got to do some amazing trips. Got to do handful of like Europe trips, some overseas stuff, and then just all the awesome trips we did in the States. Yeah, they were so many good memories. It's like hard to even know like where to even start there.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's just like with so many years and so many trips, what if I said pick your top 3, maybe let's do videos, like the top 3 cinema productions that you put together. What are you most proud of in your 12-year career there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that, but I probably would say that Phoenix video just because it was so early, everything was fresh and new, and we were just excited to get out and film. I think the reason I had picked Phoenix to film or for that trip was that I had gotten to go to Phoenix a bunch of times back a few years before that for when I was working on the Odyssey Electronical video. And then I think even after that, a little bit when we were doing Levi stuff, there was some riders out in Arizona. So Johnny Stevens, by the way, Johnny Stevens out in Arizona. So we were out there a lot. So that I think doing all those trips for those other brands to Arizona the years before brought like just kind of always had Phoenix in the back of my mind. Like, oh, if I could do like a big street trip, I should do Phoenix, because obviously a lot of the reasons you plan trips is just who you know in the area. And I knew guys like you and, you know, Eric Ballman and just all the Phoenix homies that could help with spots and just like tour guide. So as a matter of fact, I think Eric Ballman was our tour guide for that trip. So thanks to him for sharing all the spots with us and helping us make that video rad. So I would say the Phoenix video would probably be one of my favorite ones. And then later, like just ones that like stick out in my mind that were a lot of fun were we did Motor City Cinema, which is our Detroit trip. I think that was 2019, right before the pandemic. And then maybe if I go even further back, I think, probably my other favorite would have to be the Cinema Fiend trip when we went out to Tulsa. And we had a couple of the Fiend guys and then a couple of the cinema guys. So that was, I believe, 2011. And it was right after Fiend had just launched and they'd put out their first promo. And then the second video Fiend did was the Cinema Fiend collab trip to Tulsa. So that was a lot of fun.
Hosted on Vimeo. That's how far back it is. That's crazy.
Yep.
Okay, dope. So I'm thinking back to that Phoenix video, but you were already doing Levi's and something else that you said in Phoenix.
Odyssey.
Odyssey. Yeah. Was Electronical filmed in HD? I think it was.
It was. That was the very first project that we had just bought the first gen HD, the P2 cameras. So yes, that was
crazy.
That was, but actually not all of it. It wasn't entirely filmed in HD. There was some SD footage, so we couldn't like master it in HD, unfortunately. But it was like 80% probably filmed with the HD cameras.
Interesting. I'm curious about the transition for you, going from what were you filming on in standard def, and then you said you're the P2 HMC probably or something for the first one?
Yeah, I think it was the HVX 200 that was the P2 camera, but yeah, the HMC was like the SD card version of the HD camera. So yeah, before my transition to HD, I think it was, it would have been like 2007-ish, I think, right when the cameras launched. I wanted to get my hands on it right when it came out because I'd been VX 1000, VX 2000, VX 2100 guy for a long time. Probably from like the late 90s, I got my first VX 1000, and then kind of just ran that till it it stopped working super good, but I still kept it. And then I think I went to the TRB 900 if I remember correctly. And then VX 2000.
Let's stay on that for a second. Let's talk about the VX 1000. Were you a show the clip to the rider at the spot type of guy? Like, were you worried about your heads and not playing back?
It's funny. At first, when I first got the VX 1000, 90% of the stuff I was filming was at the trails. And yes, I did that because I was young and didn't know. I was 17 when I got my first VX. And I would rewind and show people the clips all the time. You had to watch on the eyepiece. There was no LCD screen. So yes, then years later, I did find out that wears out your head. So I stopped doing that as much. But then obviously when you get the VX 2000, you have the flip out screen. It's more tempting to show a rider a clip because you can see it a little bit better. So I was definitely guilty of that early on in my career. And, it's fine because those heads are kind of like, they're $300 or $400 to get replaced. It's not the end of the world if you have to get them replaced once every 5 years. So it's kind of just like the way those older cameras operated. You kind of had to just say, all right, screw it, I'm going to rewind and play this clip back and hopefully not break the time code and whatever. So
that shit is like religion for some filmers. They're like, do not play. They watch me play back because I play back every single clip. The 2100 I think is like definitely better for it than the 1000, but these cameras were built for war, dude. Like,
they were.
It's not that serious. So, but I have ruined some tapes doing it. But it's like one in 1,000.
Yeah. You get some of the tapes get the glitchy and they start dropping frames, and then you can't save a good clip. It's really annoying. Yeah,
I got my graveyard over here, burned through 5 or 6 different ones.
Hell yeah, we've got our graveyard in my office. I've got all of our old cameras out.
Yeah, how many
16 millimeters?
How many cameras do you think you've had over your career before we get back to the HD transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you include like all the Super 8 and 16 millimeter cameras, it's a lot. As a matter of fact, I did a video about this dig repost.
Yeah, I think I remember this.
Like 2 years ago. So, and that's not all of them, but if I had to guess, like the amount of like the ones that I personally own, cameras that I've used to make videos since the late 90s, is probably going on, I don't know, like 10, 12, maybe even 15 if I'm counting all the film cameras that I may have had for a short period of time. So yeah, I've had a decent amount. But then some of those cameras last for years. Like the VX 1000, I used on and off for, gosh, man, going on a decade. I'd use it for, I use it heavy for like 3 years. Then I'd put it in the closet because I'd get something new. And then that camera would stop working as well. I'd say, oh, I'm going to pull the VX back out of the closet and see if it still works. And then usually it still would, good enough to get me through whatever project I was working on. I've done that a few times. Like I ended up selling my TRB 900 to a friend, which he was using it and I wasn't. But now like I kind of wish I kept it just for like a treasure because those things are cool. The TRB 900 with the baby depth lens on it was awesome. I think my favorite camera of all time is the VX 1000 though. There's just a classic look that as a filmer and all the other filmers know, and anyone that's ever watched any of the skate videos with the legit, Mark I fisheye, that look is just, in my opinion, still hasn't been replicated by any of the newer cameras. I know every camera has kind of tried to have that look, but I don't know.
What is it? What do you think makes the VX 1000 such an iconic look? Like, if you had to try and design it to put it in a different camera, what is it? because it's just baked in, like straight out of the camera. If you white balance correctly, it just looks fucking beautiful. I don't know what it is.
To be honest, I couldn't tell you either, man. It's just something about the optics, the glass they use, and the CCDs, something in the chips that they couldn't replicate in any of the other BX cameras. And yeah, it just has that classic look that I've never really been able to figure out how to pinpoint what it is. Something about the codec and the footage and the colors are just way more like rich and vibrant than any the other VX cameras that came out.
That's it. It's just whatever. What's it called? Color profile. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yep. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. The CCD is the color profile. Yeah. And yeah, the VX2. I think it was the VX 2100. There was a bunch of buttons on top of the handle that you could kind of tweak the colors and try to make it look more like the VX 1000 in camera. And I tried that, but I couldn't ever get it to emulate that look. That VX 1000. That special look.
All right, cool. Let's switch. Go back to the trend. Like what prompted you? Have you just always been like, this is the new shit? I think I listened to you say you're not that way, on the Come Up interview. But like, why HD? What prompted it?
I think at the time I was just excited about. I usually go a really long time without buying new gear. I try to like make it last for years. And I think at the time I had been using the VX 2100 for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years, and I was kind of ready for what's new. And I remember Panasonic put out a demo with that HVX 200. They're like, oh, P2 camera coming new. It's like the first prosumer HD camera that shoots on these P2 cards. And I was like, what's this? And I started doing research. And then I remember at the time, Panasonic would let you download sample clips like to your computer for what like frame grabs or what the clip would look like, and like actual like QuickTime movies. And I remember like downloading it onto my computer and like opening the clip, and it would like go full screen. Whereas, when you'd open like a VX clip, it'd be like a tiny little 480p box on your computer screen. I was like, holy shit, like the resolution here, and I was just like really kind of blown away by this, how big that technology shift was from that SD, the interlace footage to like a real progressive scan HD footage, how different it looked. And I was like, man, imagine shooting like BMX like this. And then I remember, I believe some of the skaters like Ty Evans and Atiba and some of the skate dudes got their hands on like an early Panasonic HD camera, and they were putting out like sample skate clips. And I was like, man, this is really going to change things. And then funny little side story on that, at the time, right when we got our hands on the first HD camera, they didn't make a fisheye for it. Well, I was like, well, this is going to be mandatory to have a fisheye for this camera. So I remember Dave Jacobs and Chad Shackelford and I figured out a way to mod an old Mark I lens, and then mod it to where it would fit on the HD camera. It had like these weird black rings on the side, but we were able to make 1 or 2 of them good enough to where we could film fisheye clips on the HD. So that was what we used that lens pretty much, I think, was for the Odyssey Electronical video. So all the fisheye clips in that was like a modded fisheye lens that didn't exist, just so we could film fisheye with the HD camera.
When you modded it, like, is it because it's a Bayo mount, right? The little lock-on thing. Did you have to insert some threads and then make the Bayo mount go to those threads and then thread it to the HD camera?
That's right. Yeah, I'm kind of like forgetting exactly how we mounted it. I think it was a bayonet mount, not like screws, if I remember correctly. Gosh,
that's cool, dude. That's progressive as shit.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've thought about that or used that lens. I ended up selling it years ago, so I don't exactly remember if it was a thread on or a bayonet, but I think it was a bayonet that fit on the front of that HD camera. So yeah,
wild. And it's it's cool to hear, because like just being aware of like how big that shift was going to be. I bet even back then you're like, this is going to change things. You had no idea how much it was going to change things,
Yeah, exactly. I knew that it was the beginning of like this HD shift, and just not having to like, I'm sure you'd appreciate it too, as just being a video guy, not having to log hours and hours of tapes. Like you dump your memory cards and everything's like broken down into files, so it's just easier for like file management too. That was another big shift in HD, was like you have all your footage on a memory card, literally ready to edit that day, rather than spending hours and hours like fast forward, stop, play, pause, rewind, capture on tapes. That shit was exhausting.
It really is.
I don't miss that at all.
Yeah. This is the last project I'm doing. I'm gonna put out Mediocre at Best 2 in December. I just filmed VX clips last night. I got 3, and I'm just like really dreading capturing. It's definitely my least favorite thing. I used to love doing it, but clicking and dragging has spoiled me.
Yeah.
So you've been, I don't know, that's a corny thing to say. You've had your finger on the pulse of technology and cameras. If I said, hey, well, we're going to do a BMX project right now, it has to be the best cameras that it has to look real good. What cameras are you bringing on the shoot?
It's funny you say that. And shout out to you for making a BMX video in 2024 with the VX. I got respect for that, man.
Thanks,
like if I were going to try to make like a real video that would be like for fun with my friends at this day and age, I think I'd do the same thing. I'd want to bring out the VX and do something fun. But if it's like for like a real serious project, say it's for like, I don't know, Red Bull or whoever, and they want it to look like, current high def, I would probably go with, we're still Sony guys, we're using the Sony FX6 and the Sony FX3. Sony A7. Nice. That's like, in my opinion, that's the best camera that any young filmmaker could get.
100%.
For like a $3,000 to $4,000 range. They're shooting like Hollywood movies using that camera.
Yeah.
And they're shooting like I can't remember the name of that action sci-fi movie that came out. It was like an $80 million budget, and I saw the DPs running around. They had like a box of like 10 of those FX3s, and they were using them for all different sets and stuff. And I was like, yeah. A camera that small is being used to film like legit Hollywood budget movies. So you can do that with it, and you can do videos with it. And yeah, like what you do too, a lot of the YouTube stuff, a lot of the vlog stuff y'all do, that's like a perfect camera for that as well. So yeah, shout out. I would say the FX3. The FX3 is great. My only small gripe, no, it's okay. My only small gripe about the FX3 is just not having that internal ND filter. That's what I really like about the FX6 is just a button on the side of the camera you can hit, and it closes the ND filter. So for a lot of outdoor stuff,
Grant Castelluzzo just switched from FX3 to FX6, and it probably feels better holding a bigger camera, especially for like rolling fisheye shots. Yeah,
him and I talked. He hit me up about that, and I see him. He's killing it with the FX6 now. It seems like he's got that camera pretty dialed for run and gun filming in the streets. So it's good to see him using that.
And to have like a rocker zoom. So
yeah.
That's the other pieces. I want to film with this. I've filmed a couple like just only fisheye things with the HD, but it's like I want to get the rocker lens. There's like one lens that has like the buttons on the actual lens, right?
Yes, exactly. That is I bought that lens, as a matter of fact, for the FX6, mainly to film like whenever we do get to film BMX for work stuff, we obviously bring that lens, but it's the I'm gonna forget the model name of it, but you're right, it's the Sony zoom lens, which allows you to use the rocker zoom on the FX6, and it's literally just like turns the camera back into like a VX, which is awesome. I rented that zoom lens we're talking about from Lens Rentals for a shoot we did, and I remember having to return it. They had this thing on the website like the buy it now price as a used lens, and I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna not send this thing back. I'm just gonna buy it. And I think it was like that lens is like it's expensive. It's like maybe $2,000 or $2,500, but I was able to get it for like half price as a used rental lens. And I was like, I'm going to use this thing a lot. So I don't use it now as much as I would like to. I think it's like an f4 zoom lens. So I don't use it for more of the corporate stuff, but anytime it's run and gun, I know I'm going to need a rocker zoom. I definitely throw that thing in the camera bag. It's a good lens to have in your arsenal, especially for any BMX filmers that are used to having the rocker zoom. It's great to have.
So how about with not BMX, but for press record, what's the fanciest camera that you've been rocking for that stuff?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So we used to have like, we had like a red Komodo, and I do like the red cameras a lot. They ergonomically, they're not as friendly to use. They're a little bit clunkier. They're heavier. They don't have a lot of the bells and whistles that the Sonys have on it, but they have that kind of distinct look. I really do prefer the look of the red over the Sonys for like the color science, and kind of like that what we were talking about with the VX1000. It just has that look that it's really kind of hard to replicate and even define what it is, what makes it so special. But I think the red camera has that when it's like shot right, color graded right. There's something that looks really special and cinematic with those cameras. But what we're using now for everything is the Sonys. The Sony FX6 and the Sony FX3 has kind of become like the standard for a lot of like agencies. Agencies, like they usually, like a third party agency, let's just say like Nat Geo reaches out to us and they need something, then the first thing they're going to ask is if we have Sonys. Can you shoot it in Sony S-Log? So that's kind of like a universal ask is what we're finding from all the agencies, kind of like nationwide, that they prefer the Sony look. So, at one point we had the, what's it called? The Panasonic, it was the same camera Daryl had. I'm totally forgetting. No, well, we had the GH5, but there was also like the the bigger cinema version of that. I'm totally blanking on what the name of it is right now. The Eva. It was called the Eva 1. So we had the Eva 1 at first when we kind of transitioning from DSLRs up to the cinema cameras. But nobody wanted it. Everybody just wanted the Sony S-Log. So we ended up just kind of offloading all of our old Panasonic gear. I kept my GH5 because that camera was, you know, kind of sentimental to me. That was probably one of the only DSLRs I would use for like 5 years and really enjoyed it and still like shooting photos with it. But as far as for work, we pretty much transitioned to all Sony for that reason.
Nice
the
to
fact
hear.
that for the fact that it's like the most requested, and just the S-Log is so nice for like color grading. I'm sure you know all about that. But you can really make that look good if it's shot right, lit right, and graded right. So we've kind of just fully gone all Sony, and pretty much all Sony and Sigma glass. And we have a few like vintage lenses if we want to get weird for certain looks. But yeah, the Sonys are great, man. I'm still a big Sony guy, and we'll continue using those cameras until something else comes out that, you know, is easier to use or better for whatever reason.
Yeah. Do you remember along the course of, you know, starting HD in 2008 and then to where now everything is shot in log and we're color grading? Do you remember that learning curve for yourself? Like, were you kind of in 2008 or 9? I don't imagine that was even an option, right?
Yeah. You know, that's funny. You're right. There wasn't as much. I don't believe. Yeah, you couldn't shoot anything in log back then on those original P2 cameras. But what you could do is you could program all the different looks. So you could, you know, program it to have like a, you know, film noir look, and this was all kind of done in camera with like presets that I remember. I got like, there was this book that came with the HVX that taught you how to like get different looks, and you kind of like program it into the presets of the camera. Of course, you could tweak everything in post and try to make it look like whatever. But yes, you're right. It wasn't until like later when log really became a thing to where you could really like stylize color grading. And to be honest, I'm not, still to this day, I've never really been like a master of color grading. There's a couple other, like my business partner and some of my employees are just amazing with it, and they can kind of make it look like anything.
Yeah, they pull up
really
graphs and shit, and I'm like, how are you, you know, like the lumetri scopes? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it kind of, but no, that's crazy.
Yeah, you can go really far down a rabbit hole with color grading if you really want to go nuts. And there's a lot of people that are really good at that really know like how to bring out the colors. And I've just never quite taken the time to fully master that. But yeah, shooting in log is nice just because you can have those opportunities for all the flexibility in post for what you want to grade it like. So I've enjoyed, you know, getting to shoot with the Sonys a lot, and then just see like what the editors can do in post with the color grading. It's been really fun to see how that just gets better and better over the years.
It's just going to keep on progressing. So you've mentioned, you know, it's agency. I'm curious about, like, when I hear agency, especially in the world that I'm in, I think of social media marketing and making the posts and all that. So for clients, are you guys handling the actual distribution of their content, or they have that internal and you are just production agency?
Yeah, we're the second half of that. We are just the production company that produces the content, and then we give everything to your social media team, neatly organized in Dropbox. So yes, we do have like partners that we work with if we needed like distribution. But most of the time, clients that we work with, they know that we're there to make the content, not to really offer a social media campaign and the posting side of thing. A lot of the companies we work with, you know, are like 500 million revenue and up. So they usually have like an internal team, social media team. And we usually work directly with that team to make sure all the content gets posted and they at least have everything they need to post when they need.
Cool. I'm curious about, like, you know, I said, what did I ask your prices, but I'm curious about like your best year so far, your worst year so far, as far as gross income for the company.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It kind of goes in waves. Like we're kind of like, I don't want to say hitting a plateau right now, but we're kind of hitting a plateau right now for the past 3 years. You know, we're, like I said, a team of four or five people full time with a studio, and we're getting between the 600 to 800K a year mark right now. We're trying to bust through that $1 million ceiling. You know, all it would really take was one or two more accounts, and we're building towards that now. You know, with an agency, it's easy to want to just always have like, you have to stay in like growth mindset, but you also don't want to grow too fast. That's another thing we're very aware of. And, you know, we've seen some of our peers, like other production companies that you know, we're friends with, they have these big waves and they get like a big client, like a bunch of revenue comes in the company, and then they hire all these people to get the project done. And then nothing comes out after that. So they have to like basically fire everybody right after that. So we're trying to be on like more of a sustainable path to where we can just maintain this like trajectory and hopefully keep growing slowly. But I don't really have an intention to want to grow this to like a 50 or 100 person agency. Like my business partner and I, Ryan and I, we talk about this a lot, but I think like critical mass for us looks like probably maybe double the size we are. If we had like 10 people, I think we would be busy enough to still enjoy the creative side, because if we grow, I think more than 10, 20 people, we're just going to be like the businessmen running it at the top, not necessarily getting to do any of the creative. I still value getting to be creative every day. I'm not editing anymore. I'm more directing, producing, and then helping make sure things get shot right. And then we have our team of editors does a phenomenal job with everything in post-production. So we basically value right now more than anything is just sustainability and, you know, getting to just have like a longer runway with our revenue and not try to make, you know, spontaneous decisions and try to like scale too fast. So you know, reading about just like businesses and startups, like most startups fail within the first 5 years, and this is our 5th year in business. So it feels really good that we're still around and haven't had to take any big gnarly loans for the bank and haven't like fallen into debt or anything. So that feels like a win right now. So I'm really happy
that's huge
where things are. Yeah.
And the fact that you just get to do what you want to do, which is direct and produce and be on set and then pass off the editing. The editing is such a big bottleneck for freelancers. Like that's the part that gets all tedious and kills you.
Exactly. Yeah. Still, I'm really glad I learned how to do everything too. Like I really enjoyed like my years of freelancing and like shooting, producing, editing, the hustle and the grind that just teaches you everything, to where when you're able to, you know, if you follow the same path I did and you want to start something that you're, you know, the hardest thing for me was to, when I started building a team of editors, is to like say, here's the footage, go make something beautiful. And then over time, what I learned is that I could hand my footage to the editors, and then I don't have to like stress for days or obsess over this project until it's done. And then the editors are actually making this look better than I could have. Like they're looking at it with their eyes, their fresh eyes, whereas I'm, you know, you're married to a certain shot or you shot it a certain way, so you think it needs to be edited a certain way. But it feels really good to hand off your footage and have someone bring it back to you, and it's edited better than you could edit it yourself. So that took me a while to learn that. But now that I've seen that, it's really cool. It's really cool that we have a great post-production team, and they're really good at what they do. And they're way faster than I am too. Like I can't afford to sit around for like 4 days straight, just editing one project. I kind of need to be like looking into what's next, kind of always forward looking in the business to just keep the clients happy. And I can't just put my head down and obsess over one editing project for days or weeks anymore.
Yeah, that's good for you, man. That's great to hear. First thing I wrote down when I wanted to talk to you was I just saw your latest post on Instagram talking about honestly, I can't recall, but I just like that you're putting your face on screen and talking. So I'm curious about the mindset. Did you ever have the the mindset of like, I don't want to put myself on camera, and then push through it and just be like, no, content is good, we should do it? Did you ever have that mind block?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I think for years I've had that. I don't want to have to be an influencer or, you know, do content. But I run a content business, so I kind of need to get out there more. What I've learned kind of in my journey the past 5 years of doing an agency is that people like buying from people. They don't want to buy from like a faceless company. And I think I'm kind of guilty of that. It's like not hiding behind like a company, but again, my business partner Ryan and I talk about this all the time, is that, you know, people that put out content of themselves, even if it makes you uncomfortable, people want to see the people they're going to buy from. So I think just kind of getting comfortable. I've learned definitely, you know, getting comfortable with things I'm uncomfortable with a lot over the past few years with this business. But yes, getting like forcing myself to do content that feels authentic to me is something I've always wanted to do, but never kind of figured out how to do it. And lately I've kind of just taken more of a screw it approach, where we just set up cameras in our offices and we go sit down and just like kind of fire random questions at each other and try to produce content that way. I don't do well with like overly scripted stuff or, you know, teleprompters or any of that stuff. It just feels so like inauthentic to me. So yes, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I, you know, never really wanted to sit in front of a camera and tell stories, but now I feel like I'm old enough that I've done some shit and I got stories to tell. So it's time to sit down and get comfortable, because I kind of want to, you know, turn that more into a series, because, you know, I just have all this like footage sitting on hard drives from decades old now that I feel like might, you know, it might provide value or might be good stories for people to watch, and just kind of like cataloging what I've gotten to do over the years too. So I'm trying to get more comfortable with it. I'm trying to put out more like regular content with just stuff that cool experience I've had in the past and just like what I've learned from it. So yeah, I'm trying to get better at that.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like I think I reached a certain point where I was just like, okay, fuck it. I don't care if people think it's cringe. I want to put out content, you know? And there's still some like, dude, you're like almost 40 and you're talking on camera and you're putting that out. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's no rules of that stuff, man. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, Bobby. Keep doing it.
Yeah, thank you. I think about when you say creating a series of, you know, some stuff from the past that you've done. Is there anything top of mind that you want to make some videos about?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought about this the other day, and I don't know if it'd be cool or not, but I have like during COVID, I sat down and I feel like I did a pretty good job managing my archive of footage since honestly like the late 90s. I have everything pretty well organized to where if you ask me to find a clip, if you could tell me what year it was filmed, I could find it pretty quickly. You know,
That's
I have
impressive.
stuff cataloged in my cabinet. And now I was able to get, I spent a lot of time I spent like maybe 2 or 3 months during COVID. And I literally took like every hard drive. I didn't go through all my tapes. That's the one thing I did not do this with, but I went through every hard drive. And back before when hard drives were super expensive, I was burning everything to like those data DVDs. So I'd have like, for instance, like the whole Odyssey video, I probably have 50 data DVDs where I'd burn like disc 1 through 50, where it's all the data backed up to where I could literally dump all those discs back onto a hard drive and then like open the Premiere project and should theoretically have everything where I could open the actual original project. So I took everything that I had like on discs and hard drives and then started archiving it all into Dropbox. So now I have it to where, you know, I can go through like all the way back to like year 2000 up to like 2021, 2022, where I have like every project broken down by year, organized in Dropbox to where I can just like, if I think of something that I did, I can be like, okay, I think that was like 2005, 2006. And I can quickly go to that folder and find it if I shot it. So it was a pain in the ass to do at the time, but I'm glad I did it now because as I'm just kind of randomly remembering certain trips I went on or, you know, a photo from a trip or whatever, I can quickly put my hands on it. So what you asked me about, like any new ideas, I thought it would be cool to do this, but maybe you could help me with it. But I thought it'd be cool to come out like a video series where I post videos that I made 10 years ago. And I was thinking about doing like a picture in a picture where I do like director commentary of something that I made 10 years ago. Because I have so much stuff that's always at least a decade old that I feel like I could tell like funny stories about that stuff that's just, you know, so old that whether it, you know, was posted years ago or it's just long gone by now. So anyways, yeah, I think I pulled out like an old Edwin video. I made like an Edwin dance comp commercial the other day. I was like, man, like I made this in 2013. It was like over 10 years ago. And like, it'd be fun to like do like a little BTS video about what it was like getting to go hang out with Edwin in Brooklyn for a day. So
is it on YouTube?
You know, it's funny you were talking about Vimeo. It's probably on YouTube, but I know that it's on Vimeo. I think Dan's comp posted it, or it might have actually been the Vital channel.
I'm gonna share my screen. Right. See. Yeah, I think this is it. Let's see. Yeah, and when you're watching old stuff like this, it jogs memories, and then you have another story to tell.
Yep, I'm pretty sure
this is the one.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, this is it. So Vital flew me up to New York just for a day. I think I had one day, and I rode around with Edwin and Vinny, and that was just like on these dudes' schedule, and they were just taking me around, and we made this all in a day.
Amazing.
And then I flew home the next day. Yeah. So
what was it like? Were you like a Edwin fan, and so getting to link up with him was a big deal?
Oh yeah, I've always been a big Edwin fan. He's definitely one of my top 5 favorites. And I luckily enough got to go on like a few Red Bull trips with him before that, so I knew him a little bit. By no means was I like close with him or anything, but I had been on a handful of trips with him well enough for him to like know who I was, and I'd be cool enough to go film all that stuff with me for a day. So
cool. What was the Red Bull trips that you were on with him?
Yeah, so we did a handful of trips. So the coolest one I can remember was back in, I think this was 2005. Do you remember No Problemo Red Bull made? They did a big trip where they took a bunch of riders down to Mexico. So we went to Mexico City, and then we went to that drainage ditch, not Guadalajara, Monterrey. It was the that big sewer drainage pipe Red Bull contest. So we did like a 2-week road trip around. Yeah, exactly, this one. So I was one of the filmers on this. This was awesome. This was a Joe Cookie project. Shout out to Joe Cookie. Joe Cookie, myself, Navaz, Glenn, PP, and Delecki, maybe a couple other heads were on this trip with us. But I got to shoot all the 16 millimeter for this trip. And that was such a fun trip to go on. So that might have been the very first like Red Bull trip I went on. And then what is that other? I'm totally forgetting. Mean Streets. That was the second thing I got to do with Ed one. Mean
no
Streets
shit, 2, you got to do Mean Streets? That's
awesome. The second one I was on with I was on Corey and Seth Kimbrough's team, and we were and then Edwin was on one of the other. He's on the New York team, so. Yeah, so I I'd known Edwin a little bit, but getting to go on that filming that like 1 day trip up to New York, that was a lot of fun. So, anyways, that was one of the things that inspired me to try to do some kind of video or do a series where I talk about videos that I made 10 years ago.
It is
incredible. This one's more like 20 years ago.
Yeah, literally almost 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the back end of like getting invited on something like this? Like it's like we talked about before. I think it's just people and people, but was there contracts for Red Bull? What were they paying in 2005 for videographers? They were a baby of a company, I believe.
Right. That's a good question. I don't remember all the details there, but I think Corey Martinez, he was on Red Bull for years and years and years. And he hit me up he's like, hey, we're doing this. Red Bull's going to do a part 2 of this Mean Streets thing. And I need a filmer for my team. Do you want to be our filmer for me and Seth? And I was like, hell yeah, dude. You don't have to ask me twice. So
yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I know Red Bull paid all the filmers like maybe like $1,500 just to like come on this trip and film. And then they had like I remember, this is a funny story. I remember the winning team got 10 grand cash. And I remember the folks at Red Bull did not want us splitting up the prize money depending on who won. And then Navaz, Gary Young, and Morgan Wade's team won, and they did exactly that. They split the cash down the middle. And I remember the Red Bull people were like, no, we need like you guys to be the winners, and you guys are stoked. But then I remember as soon as they like gave the cash out, like Corey and Morgan and Gary were nice enough. They just literally took the cash and divided it up between all the teams and filmers, which was such a G move to do.
Yeah, so, that's badass. That's BMX.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So I know that again, Red Bull did not like them doing that, but that kind of made it cool for everybody that was involved in the project,
Yeah. Maybe that's why there's no Mean Streets 3.
Maybe so.
If somebody high up at Red Bull came to you and said, well, we got to do something cool in BMX, what would you pitch them to do?
See, it's funny you say that. Like a lot of people ask me, have asked me like, hey, why aren't you doing as much stuff for Red Bull anymore? And I think it's for a lot of reasons. I think they've grown into a huge media company, over the past 10 or 15 years. 10 or 15 years ago, they would hire guys like me to help go make those Mean Streets videos and those No Problemo videos and like the endemic BMX filmers, which was awesome. And now you could argue that Red Bull is not necessarily an energy drink company anymore as much of a media company. I mean, they're putting out so much content. They have a huge internal Red Bull media houses out in Los Angeles now. And they have, I don't even know how many employees they have, but I know it's like hundreds of people full-time working on content. So to be honest, I don't know if those opportunities even really exist anymore. But if someone came to me and said, hey, we want to do something really cool, man, I don't have like one big badass idea off the top of my head right now. I've always, wanted to do things like that. It's more about, for me, I don't necessarily have like a dream trick that I'd want to go film with some random dude. To be more like a rider project. I always wanted to do something with, working with Garrett so closely for all those years with cinema and got to go on a bunch of Nike trips with him. I'd always like hoped that I could do some kind of like special project with Garrett. We one project that we kind of pitched that never went anywhere is I kind of wanted to do this like Ledge Heaven theme video to where we film it like an all white studio where with the like ledges kind of floating through heaven and clouds and space. And cool. we talked about it, but it was just an idea that never went anywhere. That was something that I thought could be really cool if we could have some like floating ledges that were moved around in the studio that was filmed in a way where it could look like heaven. And just have Garrett do all his Garrett moves and film it really cool and cinematic. So that was one harebrained project we had that never went anywhere. Couldn't get them to pay for it at the time. So cool I don't know. Idea. That's one idea off the top of my head. I hope somebody goes and makes it now. So
yeah, that reminds me. Like I know Red Bull did with Courage. They did like the one in the mirrors, and then they did like you're talking about being in the clouds. Chris Kyle up in the
the hot air balloon. Wild. Yeah, that was so cool. Yeah.
But let's stick on Garrett for a little bit. How did you first meet him? What were your first impressions? What's your like favorite memory with Garrett?
That's a good question, man. I met him It was about 20 years ago. It was, and this was another fun video series I got to work on. So the local exposure tour. This was Alan Cook's idea. He came to me in 2003 and said he wanted to do like a road full style trip with a bunch of riders, and then go to just the skate parks just to kind of give locals a chance more than just the pros that are on the trip. Sick. And that's exactly what the whole theme of the trip was. So the first local exposure tour, I think it was 2003 or 2004, and it was around like we started in Ohio and worked our way over to Jersey. I think the last stop was at the Incline Club. So we pulled up the Incline Club and, you know, filming the session. There's a lot of locals there, a lot of young kids that I hadn't heard of. That was like maybe one of the first times I met Scotty and Garrett. You know, Scotty's a little bit older than Garrett, if I remember correctly, but I think I knew who Scotty was, but didn't know who Garrett was. And he was just literally this tiny kid. I think he was like
13 years old.
Yeah, 12 or 13. Yeah. So he was just this, I remember this young kid, real scrappy, scrawny kid, had like long hair, tight jeans, and was just killing it. He was like riding, I remember him doing all like really tech spine stuff, but then he could still like blast really high out of quarter. So I was like, man, this kid's like really good. He's just this young kid. And then I remember seeing him, and I think he had a few clips in that first local exposure tour video doing some stuff on the spine. And then like a year or two later, I think I see him like going to do tours and riding in like do tours. I think he rode like one of his first do tour pro comps not long after that contest. And then like a year or two later, he got on Nike 6.0 at the time. And I'm pretty close with Mark Losey. He's a good friend of mine. He lives here in North Carolina. And he was, you know, I'd see him around a lot, and he would always say, you know, got this, trying to build out this Nike 6.0 team. He had like Garrett, Nigel, Dennis, and Spinner at the time. Yeah. And, you know, they made a full length video.
Writing on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. 2008, 2009. That was Glenn PP made that video. That was around the same year that we were making the Levi's video. And then like a year or two after that, Lucy asked me if I'd be willing to help them. So Garrett and Dennis were graduating high school, and they wanted to do this series for MTV called, what was it called? 5 Months to Freedom. That's what it was called. So it was
I remember that.
The last semester of Garrett and Dennis's high school. So like Nike flew me up to Garrett's like high school graduation. So I got to go like hang out with Garrett's mom in the crowd, and Lucy was there and interviewing Garrett outside. I remember we had to interview Garrett's principal for the school, and I remember he's a nice guy, but Garrett probably should not have passed high school. But I remember because they were making a TV show about Garrett finishing school and becoming a professional rider, this guy like let Garrett graduate. Nice. So I had to like interview him at the graduation day, and he pretty much said that in a fewer words. So, you know, getting to spend time with Garrett when he was still in high school, and then, you know, as he's getting on Nike, I always like him and I always like hit it off really well. We kind of had the same sense of humor and just like joking about stuff, a lot of like shit talking. And then it was a few years later when I joined, you know, when I became cinema team manager, and I knew that he was going to be a part of that as well. So it was cool to kind of bounce from one thing to another with him, and then kind of get to go on so many memorable trips from like 2010 all the way up till 2021. We went all over the world together and did some really, really fun projects. And I always Garrett and I always had we always like vibe really well together. We enjoyed filming together a lot, and we just had so many good times on the road.
That's incredible to think about. Just meeting him when he's 13 and then going for a 18-year-long journey in BMX filming and riding. That's pretty incredible. That's dope.
Yeah, it's cool too. Getting to watch him go through all of his phases of his career, from like, you know, kind of like getting his chance to get on Nike and then Red Bull, and then, you know, just progressing so much as a rider. How, you know, everyone that rides knows that Garrett's like years ahead of everyone else. Even like now, still, you know, as crazy as BMX has gotten, he's still the GOAT of all GOATs. But then, you know, watching him become a businessman and start Fiend, and getting him to help a little bit with that in the beginning, with some video stuff, and just trying to, you know, do as much collab stuff as I could with him back then, was really fun. And he's still the GOAT, still killing it. Still.
Did you watch him at Simple Session?
You mean Battle of Hastings?
No, Simple Session was like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I didn't watch Battle of Hastings yet.
Yes. So Garrett did win Simple Session, right? He won Simple Session again this year. Yeah.
He won with his bad run, and then he did his second run and one-upped himself and boosted his score 5 points. It's like he is still pushing the boundaries, which is incredible to see.
Yeah, and then yesterday I was just watching the Battle of Hastings best trick, and my internet cut out after like him and Peraza were kind of going back and forth on the best trick, and I don't know if Garrett ended up winning that, but he did on the picnic bench. He did 3 to Manny to 180 whip. Like it took him a bunch of tries to get it, but he got it like right at the end of the best trick. So I didn't see if that won best trick, but between that and Peraza, it was crazy.
It is. I wish I could teleport, hang out there for a little bit, and then teleport back. Like it just looks like surreal. That's the whole industry is there right now. So on the Garrett note, what is it might be tough, but think of the most nervous you were. Well, I can't imagine being nervous filming Garrett. He's so dialed. Ooh. But like some sort of banger or scary situation or whatever over the years.
Man, that's a hard question. There's a lot of them. Garrett is like Garrett, and then for a matter of fact, like all the cinema guys are so good. I remember we'd be on, and it's not necessarily like scary banger tricks, but I remember just being on random trips with them, and they would say, like, I'd ask them if they would have filmed something, and they'd tell me what they want to film, and they'd tell me like the craziest line in the world, and I'd be like, wait, you got to like show me. Like, don't just tell me what you're about to do. Show me. Like, I need you to pick up your bike and show me what you're about to do, and like walk me through this because it just sounds so crazy in my head. So I remember every trip I went on, I'd always have that feeling like Garrett would just rattle off like a line he wanted to do, and it would just be way over my head for what I thought was possible, but he was always very capable of doing it. So that was the first thing that I remember. I'm trying to think of like specific, like one hit bangers that were like really, really scary. Cause I know that there was a handful of them over the years, but nothing's like necessarily jumping right out at me right now. I mean, everything that guy does is so crazy. Yeah. It's all, a lot of it's like really tech, but then a lot of it is like really scary, big, dangerous stuff too. So I'm having a hard time remembering like one specific with him because everything is so crazy. But if I think of a crazy thing by the end of this, I'll
if it pops in your head.
Yeah.
So the cinema team has always been super stacked. Just thinking of, it's kind of crazy. It's just been goats the whole time. I'm looking at the site right now, and we got, I think the only new face. Well, when did Chad get involved? Because he was after, after there was the main original squad, and then I feel like Chad got added.
That's right.
Yeah. What's been the evolution of the team?
Yeah. So Chad, I remember Dakota called me. I want to say this was like 2013, and he said, because he was filming he was with on a lot of trips with Chad Curley for the dance comp video at the time. I think Roll Call was that video, and he said Chad is very interested in cinema, and I said it's really funny you say that because we're not in a position to add anyone right now, but if I could add anybody, it would be Chad. Like Chad is like, he's one of the sickest riders. I'd spent a little bit of time with him in San Diego just when I was out there filming some of the other riders. He was a few years younger than like Dennis and a handful of the other guys I was filming at some point. So, but I had like brief interactions with him. I always knew he was a really cool kid and like was really developing into a sick rider. So yeah, I think it was 2013. Dakota said Chad wants on, and then a day or two later, I was on the phone with Chad, and he was on cinema. So that was awesome. And then I think I had to go out to Cali like a couple weeks later to film Dakota and Nathan for something, and then we just like Chad jumped in the van, and that was that. He was part of the squad at that point.
That was awesome. He is like synonymous. He is cinema at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like I keep getting locked into a cinema wormhole here, but I am what the status of like Verde Duo Cinema. Cinema's still going. Is Verde still going? And Duo still going?
That is a really good question that I don't 100% know the answer to. So I know that they were bought by System Cycle. So DK owns Verde and Duo, to my knowledge at this point, and I don't know the current status. I know that I think they're still like Verde still makes complete bikes, but I don't think they're making like frames or have a team at this point.
And this is the same system that you made the system video for. Full ass circle, dude. This is the career.
It's funny how that works, right? Same system. Yep.
That's incredible. Well, let's go ahead and time hop back to the system video. I mean, I just listened to the come up, and you guys talked about that, extensively. But for people who don't know, people who know. What question do I ask about the system video? I actually had. Hold on. Now we got one. We got one from the homie Justin Burns.
Oh, nice. Shout out.
When was the last time you talked to Justin Burns, dude? We love it.
It's funny. We talk through Instagram quite a bit, just like, seeing him posting stuff with his kids. So yeah, we chat a lot through just Instagram.
I I used to sweat Justin Burns so much. Just like he
Yeah.
does the cleanest. His biking just looks phenomenal.
Yeah. Solid dude.
Okay, so he says, gotta ask about the system video. I don't know what the process was like that era of BMX 2004, and probably didn't realize he was making such an iconic video at the time. Probably my favorite. Did he film all Sergio's stuff in that?
Yeah, so man, that, to be honest, like the system video is probably one of the most like special projects that I can like think of in my filming career. I think for a lot of reasons. One was I graduated film school in 2003, and I think I was like literally like in the back of my mind, I was like meditating my last year of film school about getting out of film school and going to try to make the sickest BMX video I could make. I was like, so it was a point in my like life and my career where I was like young, hungry, and just super inspired, ready to go, ready for the opportunities. And I was lucky that I had a really good situation to where I graduated college in 2003, and Corey Muth, one of my best friends, he had started Axis, which is it was an advertising agency. It was Corey Muth and Steve Buddenbeck. They were at the time they were in Dayton, Ohio. And what they did, Steve Buddenbeck used to work for DK for years and years and years back in the 90s as like their marketing manager, marketing director. He ended up quitting DK and spun off into his own agency because he wanted to kind of just be like an agency and do marketing for all kinds of brands, not just like bike brands, but they were doing a lot of like corporate marketing for like Do Tour and a bunch of other brands that would kind of come in and out of BMX. So they started Axis. It's called Axis Media and Marketing at the time. And they told me that when I graduated film school, they'd have a job lined up for me to where I could come work for them full time, be their full time video guy, and work with the brands they work with. And I was like, sick. That's like DK. So I moved up to Ohio, I think summer of 2003, and we started talking about, making whatever the next like DK full length could be. And then at the time, DK had just gotten fly bikes. Like fly bikes had just come to America and they were being distributed exclusively through System in the US. And I was like, at the time I was like aware of like, I think I just started seeing like Sergio started popping up on some of like the props ads for like fly bikes. I was like, what's this fly bikes? And it's like, oh, it's the new, bike company from Spain. Dudes like, Ruben and Sergio and a handful of other Spanish riders were on the brand.
Goats.
So yeah. So I remember it was like towards the end of 2003, we were pitching the idea to System to make a video, but it was just going to be the DK team at first, which was pretty stacked at the time. But then they were like, well, we have the whole Spanish team, fly bikes now. We could turn it into like a System video and use both brands' resources and riders to make a video. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So I think we had done some DK trips like while I was still in college, like footage that had been filmed like in the Carolinas. We did this big trip in like 2001, 2002, like Doyle, gosh, man, like Todd Wakowiak, Ronnie Chalk, just a handful of old heads. So I had all this old footage that I was kind of like slowly stacking for years and didn't really have a place for it. But once we realized that we were going to start making System video, I was like, okay, well, I already have like a bunch of Doyle footage that hasn't seen the light of day that could go towards, his part in the System video. But we ended up starting production officially. I think it was like January of 2004 is when I flew out to California for the first time and like filmed Biz, and a handful of riders just to kind of get footage going for the project. And then we filmed like pretty legit nonstop. Like I was on a trip, I want to say at least once a month for that whole year of 2004. We did our, it was really cool too, because it was like my first proper Europe tour when we went to the Worlds in Cologne, Germany that summer. Like Doyle, Sergio, and a bunch of riders like rode in the contest. So we ended up, I flew over, Corey Muth flew over. We had we had a bunch of dudes. We had like 10 or 12 guys on that trip. So we rented 2 big ass motorhomes and just like drove around Europe for 2 weeks. So that was like my first like proper Europe trip. We had, so we mostly stayed in like Germany and France. So I invited Marcus Wilkie to come along with us. So he was like our German tour guide. He took really good care of us with like the language barrier. And this was back before like smartphones. So we were just looking at like maps, like total like tourist fish out of water style.
That's crazy.
Just like you're Euro tripping through like Germany and France for a couple weeks. So that was an amazing experience. And we had like so much footage from the System video actually came from that Europe tour when we did Germany and France. And then, getting to spend a lot of time with Colin Winkleman back then was really special too, because he was just killing it, arguably at the top of his game until he had his like gnarly accident at the Pastrana compound, which was really, really sad, the way that all ended up. But yeah, man, like that video premiered, I think it was November of 2004 in Dayton, Ohio. But I just got asked to go to my first backyard jam the same weekend as the premiere. So I didn't even get to go to my own premiere. I got to go to England for the first time for a backyard jam event. So, that was kind of bittersweet having to get to go to like a legit premiere with all the boys, but at the same time, it was like couldn't turn on a trip to a backyard jam. So
yeah, that's tough. You mentioned that in the come up one, and I was thinking, I was
Mhm.
like, dude, what would I do in that situation? I don't know. I think
Yeah.
like, fuck, that's a toughie.
Yeah, it was really tough. So, yeah. Anyways, like looking back on the system video, that project, I think it was like, I don't know. There's a lot of different elements. It was like me like finishing college, wanting to make something really special that I could be proud of, something I could like go all in on creatively for like a year, and then having like the writers, like the right talent lined up. You asked about Sergio. I filmed probably all of the content of him that was like from the US and that Europe tour, but then his brother Angel filmed a lot of the Spain stuff. So I didn't get to go to Spain for that project. So all the footage of like Sergio shredding all of his like local parks in Spain, that was all like his brother that filmed that footage and submitted it. But
Yeah.
everything else was stuff that I got to go on trips with Sergio a lot around that time. He came over for like a Road Fools right before that, so I got to know him a little bit. I went on one Road Fools, and I think like right before we started making the system video as a filmer, and then that's kind of when I first met Sergio, and then I knew he's part of Flat Bikes, and then got to go on a lot of trips with him filming for the system video. And it's funny, like at the time, you know, Sergio would like fly to America, like Red Bull would fly him over to America. He would stay in America for like 3 months, go to like Ohio to film for the system video, then he'd fly to Austin, he'd fly to California, do stuff for Etnies. And I would like talk to Sergio, and I'd be like, hey man, where all did you go when you were in America? He's like, I don't know. He's like, he didn't even know like what states he visited because he's just like some kid from Spain. And back then you couldn't just look on your smartphone and see where you are. It's not so easy. So he would just jump in a van with a bunch of dudes and drive across country without really knowing where he's going or what they're doing. So
that's incredible.
He was a lot of fun to travel with back then. And it's cool. Like, and speaking, like talking about Garrett, how guys like that are still good, still at the top of their game. You still see what Sergio is still doing. It's really incredible that he's still shredding at this level 20 years later after the system video. Still like
it is art.
Yeah.
I watched, I just reshared one of his clips on Instagram the other day. Like if I could like Matrix style, just take talent, I would love to write a bull like Sergio. That would be incredible.
Yeah, same.
Something like the system video back then, because you're making money from a DVD. Like, so that sold, or maybe not even DVD, VHS? What was system?
VHS? I believe it was both, but I remember DVD more than VHS. We might have had a small batch of VHS, but I remember it sold on DVD, and then I don't even remember how many copies they made, and then I remember it sold out, so they got a whole second batch made, and then those sold out, and then years later, I think they made a third batch, but I don't know the status of that, if they still exist, or if they're out of print.
The reason I say that is because it was more of a viable business strategy to really invest into a video. So like something like the system video, how long were you filming for it, and what was the total budget for a project like that?
That's a really good question. I was lucky enough at the time where I didn't even have to worry about the budget. I would get either approved or not approved when I wanted to do stuff. And a lot of that project, there was a lot of flying around, a lot of trips to like West Coast and that one big Europe trip that was expensive. But other than that, it was like riders would fly to Ohio and like jump in my car and we drive around a lot. So there was a lot of that. I don't remember if there was ever like a set budget or if there was just like a number, like a do not exceed number on a monthly basis where we'd have like a budget that I was never really told what it was. And then I would know if I went over, they would let me know like, oh, we can't do that. That's too expensive. Yeah. So there was never like you have X amount to spend. It was just like, what do I got to do to keep going? Can I fly dudes in and just drive around and we can rough it, stay at our place and not get hotels. And, I remember that trip was like, it was real kind of like BMX style. It was a lot of like sleeping on couches, a lot of like traveling around, very BMX style. It wasn't like luxurious by any means. So we made the most of that budget. We stretched it out as far as we could. But to answer your question, we started like really filming for it that January of 2004. And then we were able to get the video out for the premiere it was like November of that year. So it was less than a year.
Wow, yeah.
On like filming all the way up till editing. And then the video came out. But like I said, I had a little bit of footage, maybe like, man, I couldn't remember. 3 to 5% of the footage was already filmed like in the earlier trips with like guys like Doyle and a handful of other guys. I had like a little bit of footage of like Doyle and Winkleman from like a couple years prior that was just like footage that was just kind of waiting to get used for something. So some of that stuff ended up making it in the system video. Like memorable, like the one clip I'm thinking of is like when Winkleman jumped out of the shopping mall transition into the bush. I think that's how Colin's part started, where he said, hey, my name's Colin Winkleman. I'm going to jump into this bush or tree or whatever. That fly out clip, that was filmed a few years before we made the system video back when I lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I went to film school. So
nice. Yeah. So in honor of Winkleman, what would you say is your favorite memory with him?
Oh man, I'd say just getting to travel around with him in general was so awesome. I mean, he was such a legend. I had always like looked up to him years way before I met him as a rider, just because he was built different, and he was more of a stuntman mentality, kind of more like rooftop mentality. So he was always one of those guys that kind of had like an engineer brain. Like, what if I did this? I could do that. I could light myself on fire. I could jump over all this stuff, you know?
Yeah,
So
sick.
I just kind of enjoyed the way you could just learn to watch the way his mind worked, and it was just so different from everyone else. So I think I always admired Colin's, like his creativeness, just because he's, again, and just kind of like thought different, and he's built different than most riders. But we spent a lot of time like driving around. When he moved to Greenville, North Carolina, we spent a lot of time like driving around the Carolinas, and then a lot of time doing trips around Ohio. So I don't have like one specific like memory that sticks out other than him. Whenever Colin was on trips, like for better or for worse, he was the dude. He was in charge. He was like, we're going to go do this. We're going to eat lunch here, and then we're going to go get some clips, and then we're going to go get drunk. It was like he had the itinerary figured out, and I was just some young kid like, all right, let's go.
That's a damn good day, brother. That's a good day.
Yeah, always the guy that everybody looked up to in the band, just because he was a couple years older, and he was definitely a lot crazier than all of us, and like for all the right reasons. So, yeah. Just such a legend, man. I feel so privileged to get to spend any time on the road with him, and getting to experience all the good times with him was a lot of fun.
That's great. He, like, it's always been couple of years before my time, so I didn't have the like knowledge of him, and I've just learned over the years like the legend of Winkleman.
Yeah. So, oh yeah.
I kind of want to stick on System Video, but let's go ahead, let's be chronological. You know, okay. System Video comes out, you miss your own premiere, bummer.
Mm-hmm.
What? And then you're doing Props Backyard Jam in the UK. What's the transition from there? What's next?
Yeah, so after System Video 2004, going into 2005, you know, again, just like we were talking about earlier, just by proxy of having friends in the industry that ride for different brands, different teams. The next project I worked on was, let me think for a second. It was the Hoffman Bikes video. So Ryan Barrett, another one of my dear friends, Ryan Barrett, he was on Hoffman Bikes, and he put in a good word for me with Hoffman. He goes, hey man, you know, we want to do another full length, and we think Will should make it. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I didn't really know Matt super well. Obviously another legend, super intimidated by him. I remember, I'll never forget getting a phone call from him. So they locked me in to do the Broke Off video, and I had one full year to do it. It was like, I think it was 2005 going into 2006, the video was going to be done. And I remember getting a call from Hoffman right when the project was kicking off, like, see Matt Hoffman show up on your caller ID. It's like, holy shit, you know, it's just crazy. So he's like, hey, Will, want to go to China? And I was like, oh man, yes, of course I do. You know, I haven't been to Asia yet, haven't been to China yet. And of course I want to go. So it was that SMP skate park, the world's largest skate park, was having, they used to have an event I think it was the end of every year around October, called the Shanghai Showdown, where they invite a bunch of BMXers and skaters over from all over the US and Europe, and they just do like big demos and contests. And he wanted to go do like a little filming trip in China for Broke Off. And it ended up just being me and Matt. I think originally there was going to be some other riders that were going to go, but I think there was like visa issues. So got to like share a room with him for a week in China, and, you know, getting to hang out with him one-on-one a lot.
What was that like?
It was amazing. You know, people say don't meet your heroes, but I would have to disagree with that. I mean, he was just like, he couldn't have been like a more like nice, normal, humble dude to get to hang out with in China. And I mean, he's the GOAT. Everybody knows he's the GOAT, but he was so humble and nice and just cool. And we had a great time together. We had a lot of, like, we shared a room together. We went and got massages together. We went to the skate park together, went out to nice dinners together. And then, you know, he was really good friends with a lot of the other, like the skaters that were there. So, you know, getting to hang out with that crowd and getting to film Hoffman ride that huge vert ramp was really cool. I think that still might be one of the world's largest vert ramps, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, getting to see Hoffman shred that thing was really cool.
I
remember he busted his shin open really bad too. I remember having to ride in this like real sketchy ambulance with him to a hospital in China.
Yeah.
And that was an experience.
So the name of the video became Broke Off because the theme was every filming trip somebody got seriously hurt. So
yeah,
I'm curious what those injuries were. Like, is it Matt Hoffman's shin? Is that one of them?
yeah, that was one of them. I mean, that was like for Hoffman, that was kind of nothing. That was like a baby scratch compared to all the bad stuff that he's gotten.
Considering he's died before, that's nothing.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. So I don't remember exactly what point in the project that it just became like clear that everybody was getting hurt, and we had to the video had to be like centered themed around injuries. But I remember Ryan Barrett broke his elbow really bad, so he had to get like a gnarly like surgery with like staples in his elbow. So that was part of he got hurt. And then Will Love at the time, he tore his ACL like the very first day of filming for that video.
No, damn, that's sad.
Yeah, I remember Brad Sims had just gotten on Hoffman at the time, and the first trip we went on, he like just, it wasn't like a really bad injury, but he like scraped his hands, just like meaty paws, like first day of filming.
I remember that. I remember that clip, that footage.
Yeah.
Was that in the video? Am I misremembering?
I think there was like footage of him like bleeding, but I don't remember if the crash was in there. I'm having a hard time. It's been a while since I've watched that project.
That's what I remember is like the blood, blood on the hands. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, man, slowly but surely, like everybody on that had like full parts in that video ended up kind of getting hurt one way or another, which set back filming. So we weren't able to like do as much filming as we liked. So we kind of leaned more into like the injury theme of Broke Off for that. Yeah. And then Seth Kimbrough had the last part in that. And I don't remember if he had any like gnarly injuries or if it was just a bunch of like bumps and bruises along the way, but everybody got banged up filming for that project. So that's kind of how it ended up being the theme of the video.
So for something like that back then, if you don't mind me asking, what was the offer for you? Like how you're going to work on this video for a year. Here is 10 grand. How much?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but it was probably about what you just mentioned. It was probably, and this was back in 2005, 2006. The world was a lot cheaper to like travel, and budget you could stretch a little bit further than you could nowadays when everything's 2 or 3 times as expensive. But I think we had about $10,000 to spend, and if I remember correctly, about 5 of that went to like travel, like flying riders around, food, hotels, etc., just getting the video made, and then the other 5,000 was for like me to live off of while I made the video.
That's impressive to live for a year off 5 grand.
Yeah.
Were you doing other shit at the time?
Yeah. I was still like, I've always kind of been like, had a lot of like side freelance work kind of throughout all the BMX years that I was doing. This just kind of like carried me through. It's extremely hard to make a living just doing BMX content. I would argue now, so it's harder than it was back then, because back then it was a lot cheaper to live, and I feel like there was more sponsor opportunities. You had a lot more brands like Red Bull and Nike and Mountain Dew, and like there was more access to like corporate dollars back then that with fun projects that I got to work on. But I always had like side projects. I would always doing like videos for small businesses or hospitals, or I filmed wedding videos, I filmed funeral videos, I filmed like everything. Bar mitzvahs, like you name it. Back then I was just like, whatever it takes for me to not have to get a 9 to 5, not to have to get a full-time job, just so I could keep pushing, keep kicking the can further down the road, and keep
where did this drive to do that come from? Like, is this a film school thing, or were you doing outside projects while you were in film school? Like, how did you kind of develop this, split where you're doing corporate stuff, but you're also still doing BMX?
I think a lot of it for me was just, like curiosity, and I didn't like go to school for business, so I never really had like the business skills like kind of like formally taught in school, but I knew that it was if I wanted to do this full time, it was kind of like blazing my own trail. There's not like a position you can apply for to have a full-time BMX job. That barely exists. I don't know if it even exists nowadays, probably not. And you could probably count the amount of like filmers on one hand that are actually able to make a living just filming BMX. And when you say make a living, that can mean a lot of different things. Does it mean, sharing a house with 5 guys and roughing it? Or does it mean like having a mortgage and kids? It looks a little bit different. So I'm sorry, Bob, what was the question again? I got a little sidetracked there.
Where the drive for it came.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then like the early days, what was do you remember your first gig that was not BMX?
That's a really good question. In film school, I was doing a lot of like learning the ropes of filmmaking stuff. So it was more of like learn how to tell a documentary, learn storytelling, learn how to write questions for an interview, those types of things. Learn how to like piece something together. Because when you're filming BMX, some of it is storytelling, but a lot of it is just like clip, like find the cool action shots and arrange it in a way to where it makes sense. You know, kind of going from the whatever the easier tricks, and you kind of want to inevitably end with the banger, the hard tricks. Making traditional videos is a little bit different, because if it's more of a storytelling, you got to figure out like how you're going to tell a story, what it is, and then you need to kind of figure out a way that you can make that in a way that like a small business would hire you to make a video for them. And then once you figure out how to do that, how you can like copy and paste that and do that for other people. So I don't exactly remember the first video that I made in college that was a non-BMX project, that was like a paid client project. I worked on a lot of videos, like for some of the older grad students would bring me on shoots. Like they would have like contracts with like a local hospital, and they would go need like an assistant shooter. So I kind of like assisted for a lot of folks that were older than me, and they've been doing a little bit more of the corporate stuff early on. And that was that was probably my best crash course, was learning through watching other people do it. And then, you know, I got a little bit older, a little bit later in my college, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to try to go make stuff. And, you know, you have to make a lot of bad stuff to realize like what you're good at, where you kind of niche at. And, you know, after a lot of trial and error, I was able to kind of get my foot in the door doing just some like smaller corporate videos for small businesses. And then from there, it really is all about who you know and your relationships. Because if you make a good video for this person's small business, they like it, they're going to tell all their friends about you. The word of mouth, you know, it's so much more valuable than like any kind of like paid advertising you could do, especially when you're like a smaller one-man band. So I think just learning the ropes, learning like the basics, like how to create projects outside of BMX, and then how to like sell those projects in the market. And back then you're talking like I did so many videos that were like $1,000 to $4,000 budgets, and I would do all the shooting, all the producing, all the directing, all the editing, all the client work. And it's exhausting, but learning how to do all that, I think, was such a good lesson for me, to know every step along the way from A to Z, how to make something, how to deliver something, and how to sell that. So I think I did, you know, gosh, man, I probably did hundreds and hundreds of projects in that kind of like range, that like $1,000 to $4,000 range. And that's honestly what allowed me to just keep doing BMX like 80% of the time, was to do that stuff like 20% of the time.
What was your life like? I don't know, maybe 2010. Like where did you live? And if you're doing 80% BMX, 20% corporate, like were you renting an apartment, or what was life like for you?
Yeah, in 2010, in 2010 I was married, and I that was actually the year my daughter was born. So I did have a mortgage, and my wife was a teacher at the time. So, you know, I had my freelance career going. In 2010, I was the full-time. I guess I was lucky enough to be considered full-time for Greenhouse Brands, Verde Duo, and Cinema. They had me like on their payroll, so I had like actually did have like a foundational income, a salary from them, which was awesome. And at the time, I think it was probably not quite enough to live off of, but they gave me the freedom. They knew that I was like hustling corporate videos on the side, and I kind of always had like a handshake agreement with all the brands I work with. Like, look, I have to do other stuff to make a living so I could focus on your stuff. This is the stuff I care about, but it's not enough for me to live full time off what's the salary offer is. So I always like had a good relationship with a lot of the brands that I worked more closely with, where they were always cool with it. And I always made sure that I could, not, overbook myself to where I couldn't finish a project in time, or I'd miss a trip because of something else. I always like kind of had to always be good at planning, which that was another thing too, just like planning ahead and learning about pre-production and how to like schedule projects was something that I think was pretty important for me at that time.
Huge. Yeah.
Learning how to look at a calendar and plan for what months you're going to be gone and what months you're going to be home, kind of like how to like balance out all the juggling and stuff. So, yeah.
So let's go back to chronological. Broke Off finishes.
Yep.
Then what?
Yeah. So Broke Off
Levi?
finished, and so I think Broke Off finished, I want to say it was 2006. And then from there, I moved into, that was Electronical. That was Odyssey Electronical.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was, at the time, Chad Shackford he had just moved to North Carolina for a change of pace. He was in Ohio. He grew up in Ohio, but he wanted a change of pace. And he moved down to North Carolina, and him and I started working closely together on, we got the Odyssey project as like a group collab project. Because at the time, he was still doing the Shook videos, and Odyssey was the exclusive distributor for the Shook DVDs. So he already had a relationship with them. And I remember we went out to California for a shoot. I don't remember who it was for, but we ended up having a big meeting with Jim Bauer and Nuno from Odyssey, and sat down and talked about the video for a long time. And I think we went back home and put together a budget, and we were ready to start filming the week after that. So we spent pretty much all of 2007. I want to say the video came out like January of 2008. So that was a project. It was like a little over a year from start to finish. And that was really cool too. Like, we did a lot of trips where we'd fly out to California, start at Odyssey, and we'd get in the Odyssey van and we'd just drive somewhere. And I remember those were probably some of my first trips to Arizona, if I remember correctly. I remember coming to stay with like Casey Badger and those guys, that house at the time.
Classic,
and
yeah,
that was a really fun era to be out in the Phoenix area. So a lot of trips to Cali, a lot of trips to Phoenix, and then kind of everywhere in between. Their team was pretty spread out. The riders were kind of all over the place. So I remember traveling quite a bit for that project. It was a lot of fun.
If you had to pick one rider in that video that was your favorite, obviously that's a terrible question. Which kid is your favorite? But which rider in that Odyssey Electronical video did you personally love the most?
Well, that's hard, but also easy for me. Getting to film a full part with Taj at the time was just, that I could have just been done filming BMX after that, because he was just always my favorite rider. Like, from right when I first, started paying attention to BMX, Taj was always my favorite rider. And he was, that was kind of like towards the back part of his career. That was like his last few years getting to ride as a pro. Remember, he had his back was really messed up at the time, but he was still kind of pushing through. And I know now he's still got some injuries that have prevented him from riding. But yeah, getting to do, for his section, he wanted to do like a little bit different theme. So he was good friends through all the bands Taj played in. He had a bunch of friends that were in bands and lived kind of all over the place in weird places. But his buddy lived in Kansas, and he had just bought, I believe it was an elementary school. That this story's crazy. So this guy that lives in Kansas, Taj met him when his band was touring. I think he was in another band that Taj's band was touring with. He bought an elementary school on eBay for $5,000. And then he basically just turned it in. He could do whatever he wanted with it. And Taj asked, he's like, "Hey man, can I come build some ramps and turn a room into a skate park for this video project?" And the guy was like, "Hell yeah, come on out." So we flew out to the middle of nowhere, Kansas for a week. It was Taj, Jim Bauer, myself, and Justin Cosman. I'm trying to remember. I don't think there was anybody else with us. I think it was just us four.
Fucking legends.
Yeah, we spent a week in middle of nowhere, Kansas. And all they had was this little tiny hardware store, and then this elementary school. There was literally nothing else there. I think we had to stay in a hotel that was 30, 40 minutes away, because it was the closest hotel. Yeah. But we had free reign over this elementary school. And Taj has always been good with building ramps, but never professionally taught, but he knew how to rig stuff up. And Bauer was pretty good with the tools at the time. So that was just a week of us just trying to figure out what we could do, what we could make out of the lumber we had, and how we could make a cool part out of it that was, something that Taj wanted to do. So that was a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, that's super special. Versus and that's your whole section in 1 week, versus the other riders in the video where it's you multiple trips and different locations and.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. But yeah, man, you asked me to pick a favorite rider. That's a hard one, because I was good friends with a lot of those guys, like Gary Young and Chase Hawk and Aaron Ross. The list goes on, but that was
it was stacked, dude. You forget.
Behringer, Adam Banton. Yeah. That was
what
a lot
about the
of fun.
theme? Did you help come up with the theme? You guys did practical effects for the names of everybody. Who did that? That shit was very progressive.
Yeah, that was all Jim Bauer. I think we had the idea to do some kind of Hollywood billboard theme, and then Bauer's well, what if we did neon Christmas lights? And he took the time to hand build all those things.
That's incredible.
In Los Angeles. So yeah, shout out to Jim Bauer. He had that was a really cool idea. Once we, I think electronical, it's obviously a word that means nothing. I don't think it's even a real word, but I remember Bauer, that was just kind of a word that kind of got thrown out in the van a few times on some of the trips, and I had no idea why. But it was kind of one of those things that became kind of a running joke on some of the trips, and then it eventually became the title of the video. And then I think I don't even think the idea for the light, the light walls with the names cut out on it, was even a thing until maybe the last month or so. Oh shit, we should just make these big practical cutout signs for all the guys' names.
This video's almost done. We have to come up with a theme.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think we literally came up with that idea near the end, and we had to get to all the riders in time to go get them to hold their sign or do something unique with their sign. So that was like the very last thing we filmed was all the signs and stuff with all the riders. That was like the video was done, but we had to get the signs for each rider's like intro and like the intro to the video kind of shot at the very end. So that was a lot of fun to make. I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity. Shout out to Jim Bauer and Nuno and the Odyssey team for letting us do that. That was a lot of fun to make.
It is so crazy to me thinking about just how many legends you've filmed in your career. It is like just it's easy to it's wild. And I just remember Aaron Ross's signature keyboard stuff, I think, was coming around the electronical time. I could be wrong, but it feels like it was in that time. And just like being the biggest Aaron Ross fan and Chase Hawk, and so it's pretty cool. I'm sure you don't take that for granted. So electronical happens. How did you guys premiere that, by the way?
That was we did like a proper Hollywood premiere for that one. I remember that was all organized by the Odyssey team, and we had like a legit venue somewhere on like Hollywood or Sunset Boulevard, and they flew the whole team out for it, and it was awesome. I think they flew everybody out, got hotels, and just had like one big party premiere, and that was a lot of fun. So that was I believe that was the end of 2007 or maybe the beginning of 2008. And I just remembered a project that I was actually working on simultaneously with the Odyssey video. Another big one that's noteworthy was when Mirra started Mirra Co. Him being right here in Greenville, I was down in Greenville a lot just by proxy of knowing a lot of the riders down there and filming. And I was filming a lot with Mirra at the time, and he asked me if I could help him like start putting together content for Mirra Co. And that was like 2006 is when he launched Mirra Co at Interbike. So we spent a lot of time making like a DVD, and that was like right when he was introducing Nigel on the team. I think that was like right when they like launched Mirra Co. So I got to make like the first promo with him. That was a lot of fun to make too.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So that was kind of like
the first Mirra Co.promo you made.
Yeah, I think
I'm gonna have to rewatch that.
Yeah, I think it was 2006 it came out, and I remember I made a version because Mirra at the time, he was like, I was like, do I got to get music cleared for this? It's just gonna play at Interbike. He's like, nah, man, we don't need music clearance. So I'm like using Biggie Smalls and like Mirra's part. And then I remember once the video made its way up to like the folks at Trek and Mirra Co, they're like, oh, we gotta get cleared music in this thing. So I remember having to like re-edit the thing after Interbike with cleared music. So there's two versions of it floating around. I don't know if the
Interbike one. That's the one I want to see with Biggie. I doubt it exists on the internet with the copyright.
You know what? I can send it to you if you want to play it. If I don't know if you want to like drop it in the video,
absolutely.
I can send it to you afterwards. I just uploaded it the other day, so I know exactly where it is. But getting to work with Mirra Co was a lot of fun. Getting to help Dave tell his story, like why he wanted to launch Mirra Co was a lot of fun. Mirra, again, he's one of those guys that's such a legend. I feel lucky enough that I grew up kind of close to him. He came to our trails a lot too. Like we had our 401 trails in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I grew up riding, and that was like the main spot for guys like Chris Doyle and Ryan Barrett, Corey Muse, myself. The Dirty South. So Mirra and Nyquist would actually come ride our jumps a lot, and this is back when they were like rock stars, and we were just these kids with trails. But they were always came rode trails with us, and they were so cool. So I got to know Dave a little bit back then, and then I just kind of knew him just from see him in events over the years, and then when it was time for him to launch the brand,
Sorry, it's just thinking about meeting Dave Mirra when you're a kid and he's riding your local trails is absolutely insane.
Yep.
Real quick, let me ask you, who was the first person in your crew as kids to learn tail whips?
Ooh, that's a good question. So tail whips were always.
Chris Doyle said it was you.
Yeah.
He said he was the first of our crew to pull the tail whip. He would show up at the trails in 360 dubs first run and had a ton of combos. He'll be modest about how good he was, but he could rip.
Well, that's very nice of Chris. Chris was he was like light years ahead of us, like talent wise, like the rest of us. He was doing all of his tricks, and that's kind of when he was breaking out, riding all the dirt contests. The tail whips were a trick that escaped all of us at the trails. None of us could do them. And I remember I went to Woodward for 2 summers in a row as a camper, and my goal was to fucking learn tail whips when I was there.
Nice.
So I went from the foam pit to the resi, and never could have them like 100% consistent. I could, the way I did tail whips was I would either land at pedal to pedals or die. There was no like wall ride or like run out of it or bail. So I remember one time when I did come back from Woodward, I was like just really determined to get a tail whip at the trails in front of all the boys.
Nice.
And I got one. I got like literally one. pedal to pedal.
That's all you need, dude.
It was amazing, but I don't ever think I don't think there was a second one that ever like was landed smooth or proper without a foot down or whatever. So
there's no need for a second one, dude. You did it.
Yeah,
you did the
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. And then funny enough, Doyle, like maybe a year later, could just do he just learned them, and he's like, oh, I can do it now. And he was doing regular whips. You know, he got the cover of Ride doing a regular whip that year. I think it was 2000 when they had the CFB here in North Carolina. That was pretty cool. That was a cool year because when Hoffman brought the CFB here to Raleigh, like all the people that were the contest came out to our trails. So we had like Aiken, gosh, man, it was just full of dudes like Aiken, Brian Foster, you name it, and they were at our trails because they were all for like contests. Of course, I couldn't do a tail.
CFB? What is CFB?
CFB was Hoffman's Crazy Freaking Bikers series. So it was like Hoffman's contest series back then. Yeah, they called it the CFB.
Dope.
Yep. So
dude, I'm gonna pee my pants. I know I have 15 more minutes with you, so hang on 1 second.
Yeah, no rush, dude.
Doing good, Will. We're doing great.
Hell yeah.
We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. This is great.
This is great, man. It's great.
What a trip to think about your career. Your journey is kind of nuts. You've done a lot, my guy.
Yeah, man. I feel lucky. You know, I like as I'm older now, I'm in my, approaching my mid 40s. Sometimes I do just like sit back and think about like, man, how did I get to do all that stuff? Like, how did I get lucky enough to have all these opportunities? And it's just one of those things. The older I get, the more I appreciate every like road trip I got to go on, where at the time it just felt like a whirlwind, and then you just feel like you're so in it that it's hard to like reflect on it as much. But now I'm much more like older and self-aware. I feel like I can kind of like take a step back and just like appreciate all those times and the experiences I got along the way, the cool people I got to work with, and all the cool videos I got to be a part of, and just the traveling part too is something that I think I'll always be super grateful for. Getting to go to like I think I got to go to like 30 some countries just through BMX.
Damn.
That would never happen if I was like filming basketball or soccer or,
exactly.
Something like that. So I feel very lucky.
It's a beautiful thing. And you don't realize that you're in the good old days until you're no longer in the good old days.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
I feel the same way on a smaller scale with my BMX experience. It's been a dream. Like if you told my 16-year-old self, I'm sure same for you. Like if you told your 13-year-old self, you'll be in China with Matt Hoffman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It sounds too good to be true. We were getting there. I know we were going to talk about Levi. So do you want to tell that story real quick? Yeah.
To catch us up, we did Broke Off, and in the meantime, you're doing Mirra Co. stuff, which is crazy. You could do a whole podcast about that. Here, real quick, what I think would be amazing is, and it might help you to plan out what content you want to do. We should do a live stream and go over some of your old videos and talk about it. If you're
I would
down.
love that. I'm super down. You let me know and let's do it. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So Mirra, Broke Off, and then Levi's. Sorry, Mirra, Broke Off, Mirra and Electronical, and then Levi's. What was the first approach from Levi's?
Yeah, so it's funny, the Levi's story. Gosh, this is a really big story, but I'll try to tell it like the condensed high level version. So when I was working with Hoffman Bikes, they had just gotten a co-sponsor with the Hoffman Bikes team, Target. So Target Corporation was a co-sponsor of Hoffman Bikes. They would help them pay for all the contests they were doing, help pay for events and team salary, etc. And then, so the woman who worked for Target's marketing department, who was like integrated into the BMX stuff, the sponsorship part, her name was Kathy McGrath. And she was this woman who kind of came from corporate America, didn't know anything about BMX. And then she got to know Hoffman and K-Rob, and she fell in love with BMX and bikes and thought it was the coolest thing ever. So she always wanted to do more beyond what she was doing with Target. And she also gave me some cool opportunities that I didn't talk about. So like in 2005, I was doing some videos for Target at the time. She asked me if I wanted to fly out to San Diego and film a Target video with the kid named Shaun White. I was like, who's Shaun White? Never heard of this kid.
Damn.
And at the time, he was, it was before he like won the Olympics for snowboarding. I knew him as a skateboarder because I knew that he was a skater. I didn't know about the whole like snowboarding thing. So I went out to his house in San Diego and filmed some videos for this, like when Target was launching this website, they needed some content with him. And so I went out and stayed with his family for a week. And Lee Ramsdale was actually with me. He's a good buddy of mine. And he was like hosting this series for this thing called Freestyle Living, which was a series that Target was putting out. So long story short, I'd gotten some experience working with, through Target, I was doing stuff with Hoffman Bikes and with Shaun White. He was, sponsored by Target as well. So if you fast forward a few years later, Kathy, who used to work at Target's marketing department, was no longer with Target. She'd started her own advertising agency called Bird Marketing, and she was based in Minneapolis. This was such a legendary move, what she did next. So I think it was late 2007. She cold called Levi's like 1-800 number, Levi's in San Francisco, Levi's like corporate offices. She somehow got a marketing person on the phone and said, "Hey, I think you guys should have a BMX team." And they were like, I don't remember exactly how the story went, but it was a short conversation, and she was able to get another call with someone higher up at Levi's. And she, over the course of like the next few weeks, she was able to schedule a meeting, get them interested, fly to San Francisco, and then get them to go ahead and sign a paper saying that they would spend $1 million a year starting a BMX program.
Wow.
So in 2008 was when we kicked off. And that's when, for a very short period of time, Levi's said that they wanted, it was going to be Levi's Strauss Signature was going to be their action sports brand, not like the main Levi's brand, which it eventually became. So at first we started this campaign where it was going to be the BMX team was Levi's Strauss Signature. So we started doing, started filming. They picked the team at the time. It was Jamie Bestwick, Corey Martinez, Morgan Wade, and Anthony Napolitan. So those are the original 4 dudes that they put on Levi's Strauss Signature. And then like a month or two into like we were starting to do some like artwork for like when are we going to launch the campaign, like launch the BMX team to the public. There was a big shakeup at Levi's, and they're like, never mind, we're just going to put them on like the main Levi's brand, just Levi's, and which is actually much cooler than the signature Strauss brand. So so that was like 2008, and then they were like, okay, well, it's February of 2008. We would love to make a full length video to come out in time for the Snore Cup award ceremony in that year, 2008. And then they were like, we also have this idea to do the clip of the week series where we want to start doing viral online videos. And they had already partnered with Vital ahead of time. And they were like, do you want to make weekly web videos for Levi's? And I'm like, you mean I have to make a video that comes out every week? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, that sounds amazing. This is great. But I don't live in like the same state of any of the riders. So how are we going to do this? So we sat down and came up with a plan for how we could like batch film a bunch of content and start figuring out how to do this clip of the week for Levi's on Vital. So
that's early for like consistent series. Yeah, go on.
Exactly. And simultaneously, while we were filming all that online content, they wanted to make a full length DVD, like a real riding DVD that would come out that year. So that was awesome. That was kind of a point in my career. That was before I was doing the TM work with Verde Duo Cinema. So I kind of was like full-time. I was freelance still, but I wasn't an employee of Levi's, but it was like enough for me just to go full-time for them all of 2008 and most of 2009. I was just doing content with Levi's.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then like towards the middle of that year in 2008, they wanted to pick up some new riders. I actually suggested to them that they should let some of the pro team riders pick some flow team riders. So that's exactly what they did. Each pro team rider got to pick 2 flow team riders. And it's funny enough that Corey Martinez picked Nathan and Dakota at the time. And that was my intro to those guys. So
damn. Hold on,
so
let's play a game. Can you remember Jamie Bestwick picked Brett? No, Morgan picked Brett. Who picked Brett?
Brett Walker was picked by Morgan. Yes. He picked Morgan and Johnny Stevens of all people.
Yeah, dude. Man, that's a great way to pick your team. That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Who did Jamie pick?
Jamie picked Zach Warden and Ron Thomas. Ron was a rider that lived at Woodward at the time. And then, and then Anthony picked his brother, Ronnie Napolitan, and Jeremiah Smith. Those were his 2 picks.
So stacked. So, those were, this is like super nostalgic for me because I was in the Levi's videos. I was just watching the shit out of them.
That's cool, man. So that was, and that was, if I remember correctly, that was the first project. We were talking about HD cameras earlier. So I had the HD camera for like 80% of Electronical the year before. And then starting fresh on Levi's, I was like, it's going to be all HD. It was the first project. It was like 100% HD. I had the modified whale eye, fish eye. So I was like, all right, we're going to go all HD for this one. Try to make it like proper from start to finish. And I was still kind of trying to work out the best filming settings. It was still kind of a work in progress, still learning the settings and the camera. But I felt like that was the first project where I felt like I'd kind of like got my head wrapped around it. That full length video, that was one that I felt like, I understood the camera well enough to use it for what it's made for and how all the settings work. So that video premiered at Nora Cup in 2008, and it was a free DVD. I think they made 100,000 copies that were free in all the Dig magazines at the time. So it came.
Wow. That
was probably near the end of that area where you get like a free full size like packaged DVD with the magazine. And I remember they didn't want the magazine to cost extra. So I think Levi's paid a bunch of money to make the magazine offset the cost of the magazine to where it would still be like a normal, whatever digs were back then. So
damn,
that was really fun. Yeah. That was a really, really fun project. And then, so we made the full length video, did 40 weeks of weekly content for Vital that year in 2008. And then in 2009, they said, okay, let's just keep making weekly videos. So I think I made 30 weekly videos for Levi's and Vital that year in 2009. And then at the time, at that point, near the end of 2009, I know a lot of the folks that worked at Levi's marketing team were like, they were either getting fired or laid off or changing jobs one by one. There was like a core team of like 8 people that maybe like kind of kept the program going that worked at Levi's. And then as that team kind of like dissipated, their priorities changed. And then they ended up they did not renew me in 2010. I think they renewed the riders for 1 more year. They got 1 more year on Levi's, but in 2010, I wasn't doing any more videos for them, which that was perfect for me because I was transitioning into like full-time TM work for Verde Duo and Cinema at the time, as Levi's was kind of on its last year.
So what do you think? It was a consequence of the 2008 crash, and then they got to tighten their ship and then lay people off, and then the interest just isn't there? Like, what do you think is the reason that they bailed? Because that's the theme, is like companies come in, let's use BMX to market, and then psych.
Yeah. I don't know for a fact, but you're probably right about just the lag effect of the financial crisis in 2008. Those companies were spending a lot of money around that time on marketing. And I think they probably were just like, okay, we need to like cut all these costs and tighten our belt just to see like the ripple effects. It took a few years to kind of work through all the corporate budgets and stuff. So yeah, I kind of felt like I was at the right time, right place, right opportunity, and was able to get to work on that, as that financial crisis really did have a big effect on how sponsors funded projects and how they thought about how to use their marketing budgets. So yeah, for whatever reason, it didn't make it. And I know that I don't think I've seen. I don't know if Levi's is back in BMX, but I have seen them like giving riders jeans again. I've seen like people have stickers on their bikes and stuff, but I'm not really sure if they're like back in or if they're just like hooking people up with product. I'm really not sure.
What's really interesting about all that to me is the Corey Martinez bringing Nathan on. Like, all right, let's go. And I think that was after Nathan's props bio, right?
Around that time. Probably right after.
Because that's when I remember that being like, oh shit, who the hell is this? This is sick. And just to see him still 15 years later, top of the game, is another incredible thing. Do you have any really fond memories real quick of Nathan Williams? Is it a hard out for you like 2 minutes ago?
No. We're good, man.
Cool.
Man. Yeah. So getting introduced to like Nathan and Dakota in like 2007, I think this was right after Dakota was just in that Insight video that Navaz made, the ride video Insight, which was amazing. Dakota had the opening part and it was just really tech street stuff, a lot of like Cali spots you've never seen before. It's like, holy shit, this kid's blowing up. I think that was like my first time hearing about Dak, was seeing that Insight video. And then Corey had been out to California a bunch and ridden with Dakota in person and said he was a rad kid and he wanted to give him the opportunity. And then Nathan was from a suburb of Nashville. So I think Corey had known him a little bit longer, just being like closer. And I think Nathan had come out to ride that 6th Avenue, that indoor skate park in Nashville. So Corey knew Nathan earlier. And I think I met him around that same time I met Dakota when he brought him on. And yeah, man, I remember just being like really blown away by those, especially those two, like what they've become now, but just kind of seeing them earlier in their career. I could kind of see it back then. I was like, these guys are going to blow up. These guys are like, the way they ride street is just different. It's hard to explain. I don't really know if I can put it into words, but you could see the talent with them and like see like where they were going, just how much those guys love riding and how much they care about like filming like legit video projects. I was like, holy shit, man, I feel like really lucky to get to be like here at this point in time with this group of riders this group of riders that just has this like really special chemistry. So, just getting to go on trips with them. And I'm like probably I'm like 10 or 12 years older than those guys. So, kind of felt like I had big brother syndrome a little bit. Like these guys are like my little bros. But then also the more we traveled together, the more it just felt like we were all like the same age, whether I'm like immature or those guys are like super mature. I'm not sure what's the case, but yeah, we all hit it off and, doing all those Levi's trips back in the day, like got to go on like, like I think I got to go on like Dakota's first trip to Barcelona with him when we were doing Levi stuff. Like some of those their first trips overseas, I got to be with them, and yeah, just getting to see those guys blossom and like turn into what they are now was awesome. Again, it's like I find it hard to put into words just how much those guys have done for like street riding, but anybody that pays attention knows like those guys are like super goats, and they're like will go down in the history books as some of the best street riders ever. So yeah, man, I just feel lucky and have a lot of gratitude for having the opportunities to see those guys come up when they did and get to point a camera at them, you know, earlier in their career, and then all the way up to like very recently I was doing a lot of like really, really fun trips with that same squad. So that's what kept it fun for me for all the years, was just the people, was honestly the riders. You know, just getting to be so close with those guys and just traveling constantly and going to different places, you know, going overseas a bunch, you know, getting out of our comfort zones a lot, having all these crazy life experiences together. It's just really, really kind of a special relationship you get with these guys over the long course of several years doing it. So yeah, man, it was so awesome. So many great experiences I could probably talk for days about.
Yeah, dude, while you're talking, I have the song from the Levi's video, just like bing bing da ga da dun 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 dun. You know what I'm talking about? Which second was that? I want to say Nathan's. At first I was like Nathan and Corey, or is it a Dak, or was it a mix?
It was a mix of all three of them. Yeah, there was two songs in there. I think the first song, the one you're talking about, was this band called The Clientele, and then the second song was this band Caribou.
Caribou, that's the one.
Yeah. I remember that was, so another thing I learned too. So Levi's, that was the first time I think I'd made a video where I had to get all the music cleared for the DVD. So I hired we hired a music supervisor. Shout out to Lori Vincent. I know she's probably not watching this, but she's like OG legend GOAT. She does like all the music licensing for all like the big skate videos and snowboard videos and surf videos. So like anything you've seen that's like a big budget skate video, she's the person who like contacts the record labels, gets the paperwork done, gets the licensing done, does the agreements, the contract paperwork, and then like the payments. So we hired her for Levi's, and man, that was tough. Just being under like the Levi's umbrella, when you hit up these like indie record labels and they hear Levi's, they just like want a bunch of money. So, but I mean, even back then in like 2008, I think we were spending like, I don't remember what our total music budget was, but we spent $2,500 per song on that video to get DVD and web licensing. And there was still like a bunch of bands that wouldn't even talk to us for that. They were like, no, that's way too low. Like we would start at $5,000 or $10,000 per song. And that doesn't get you, when you license songs, there's all these different layers of complexity that make it more challenging. But then when you put stuff on DVD, you have to license it for what's called in perpetuity, meaning forever, because if it's on a DVD, it's going to be forever. But a lot of labels wouldn't do that. They're like, no, you can have the song for 2 years. Well, you can, you know, you can,
that's not going to work. Yeah.
I was like, well, this is on a DVD, so it's there forever. So anyways, long story short, I remember that we used that Caribou song in Nathan and Dak and Corey's part. And I had licensed that song like a year before the video came out. And the song was in another video that came out right before the Levi's video came out that was not licensed, but it caused a lot of drama and a lot of shit talking that we song jacked someone else and all this stuff. I'm like, hey guys, listen, I actually paid this band a shitload of money to use their song, and I licensed it a year ago. But you know, haters gonna hate. I didn't care. Levi's made the video completely free too, which I thought was awesome. Yeah, they had the budget, you know, might as well give away the DVD and all the Dig magazines, and it was online for free a few months later. So anyways, yeah, that was the music licensing for that was a big story. And I remember that was really hard to get a full soundtrack licensed. And you know, going back and forth it took like probably 6 months at least to get all the music licensed before I could edit.
It makes me appreciate it even more in hindsight, knowing that you had to go through that hurdle of like, you can't just use music, because that's something I wanted to talk to you about. There's a there's a Will Stroud style of music, whether it's the cinema videos over the years or the Levi's video. Like Will Stroud videos have a feel, and it's a very specific type of song. How did your taste in music for videos develop? What a weird fucking question.
Yeah. No, it's funny you asked that. You know, people have told me that before, and I guess I understand it, but I kind of just like what I like, and I don't know how to explain it. A lot of the music I like, I feel like no one else likes it. And some of the stuff, you know, it's hard to explain what you're looking for when you're looking for music for soundtracks. I'm sure you know this for spending hours looking through tons of playlists and trying to catch the right vibe. But, you know, as cheesy and corny as it might sound, I would just listen to hours and hours of like YouTube playlists, Spotify playlists, you know, friends' CDs, like bands, friends' bands. You know, I'm really in the music scene here, like locally too. So I would, you know, I'm always been on the hunt for music that just inspires me and music that I could actually like see that would like, if I could hear a song and it just something inside me, I could like see something visual that goes with it. I always want to try to figure out a way to use it in videos. So I don't really know how to answer your question, like what my style of music is. I mean, it's evolved a lot over the years, and I like a bunch of different genres that really don't are very different. But I think with cinema, like for instance, Corey Muth and I, when we were launching cinema, I was like, so what's the vibe here? And I remember him telling me, he's like, yeah, man, it's like, honestly, it's like Brakeless Street Riders. So I was like, okay. And this was like before I even came on. This was like when he told me, like, you know, got Garrett and Corey and Ian Schwartz on the team. I think I just started like thinking like, man, it'd be kind of cool to go like some kind of like soul music, some R&B soul music, which isn't, you know, it's in some videos, but it's, you know, maybe back then when we started, it was like maybe more hip hop focused. A lot of bike videos were hip hop or metal or whatever, everything in between. So I just kind of wanted to do something a little bit different for cinema, and we kind of like caught that Motown R&B vibe. And I just kind of ran with it, man. I went from that point on. I kind of went down all the Motown deep cuts playlist online, whatever I could find that was different. A lot of stuff that was unreleased, a lot of stuff that was just on vinyl but never really made its way to like digital or the or web. I would, you know, scour playlists for hours and hours and hours, and not really knowing what I was looking for until I heard it. You hear something and it's just like, oh, this is it.
It's a feel.
I know this is it. Yeah. So that's honestly how I found most of my music for at least cinema content over the years, and everything else kind of you know, I tried to always keep it fresh for whatever brands I was working for, but I don't know, man. I kind of just always like what I like, and you know, whether other people like it or not, I was just kind of always like, if I thought it could work for a video, I'd always try it and then show friends and see if I got, you know, what people thought of it. But it's interesting you say that you feel like my videos have like a certain style of music, because I've wondered if people thought that, but I've never been able to like really articulate it very well, like why I did things the way I did, you know. Just all kind of comes down to vibe and feeling, like you were saying, though.
Yeah, it is legit just a feeling. I've tried to explain it to people, and like what you're looking for music for a BMX video. For me, I want some dynamicism. I don't want it to be the same. I want like shit to change. I want there to be like a key moment where there's, you know, a drop or a change in thing to edit to. Those are good, but it is just feel.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's go back to chronological. Levi's is done. You're out. Now you're shifting to be the TM for cinema, and then damn, just 11 years of or 12 years of doing that. Like I don't even know what to ask you about that. That's 12 years of your life.
Yeah. So that was from that point on, from around 2010 to all the way up until 2021, the team manager role was kind of my primary, where I was usually on like a retainer with the brand. So Greenhouse owned Cinema, Verde, and Duo up until I think it was 2016 or 2017. Verde and Duo were sold to DK, and then Cinema was sold to Blackout. So Cinema was sold to the Kink distribution guys, and I went with them when the brand was sold. I went with just Cinema, and then Verde and Duo went to System. So I was no longer the team with those brands. So from 2017 to 2021, it was just Cinema. It was like kind of like my full time. As far as like my role in BMX, it was just TM and video for those guys, and that was cool too. Like the Blackout guys, I got nothing but good things to say about them. They were awesome to work with. They kind of you know, there was a couple years there as the brand was being sold that we didn't have a very good budget to do trips, so we kind of had like 2 or 3 like lackluster years where it wasn't a lot of team trips, kind of like losing momentum. And then in 2017, when Blackout came in, they were able to like get us back on the road, you know, travel budget, kind of getting the team going again. So that was a lot of fun.
Where's Blackout?
Blackout, they're up in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Rochester, New York. Yep. So, and then, you know, along the way, I still was doing like stuff for like Nike and Red Bull and like a handful of like side projects along the way, just to kind of make ends meet. So yeah, but like I was honestly probably the most focused on my TM years those last like 5 years, when blackout came back in, and we were doing at least like one big trip a year, and like I would usually go to Cali at least once or twice a year, because that's where at the time I think all the team riders were living in California except for Corey Martinez, but he was always out in Cali. Just he was living out there about half the time. So so I would always just kind of end up out there and then wander around with the guys. It's pretty much everyone was based in like San Diego area at the time, so it was just easy to go out and do trips with the guys and just kind of hang out and do TM stuff with them on the road.
It seems like cinema's steadily done well. Like there's it never felt like cinema was struggling or fucking. It seemed, and you would always see the boxed wheels in the bike shop. Like cinema was doing good. What was it like to be a team manager for so long? Like if you had to just briefly tell somebody what your job was, what all were you responsible for?
Yeah, man, I loved it so much. It was such a fun job. It was, in my opinion, the coolest job in the industry, because you get to work with the pro team. You get to make sure they're taken care of as far as all the parts they need. You work on signature parts with the team. So getting to work on, like, Garrett had a signature grip, CK had a signature pedal, Nathan had a signature tire. So you get to like work with the riders. I wasn't like designing product, but I was getting to help kind of like guide the ship a little bit as far as like what they wanted, how were you going to do it, how were you going to promote it, marketing, etc.
Okay.
And then content. So I would just kind of like talk to the team about, okay, usually like every year we would try to form a plan for like how many trips we were doing, what the goals were with what we were trying to make. And then like we try to always do at least one full team trip a year where you get everybody together and go to like a city and do a filming trip in that one area. And that was honestly some of the best times, was getting to plan those trips and bring the whole team out and then just spend a week checking out the town. I would always plan trips in cities where at least I knew somebody that could maybe be our tour guide, or somebody that could kind of hook us up with where to go and how to make the most of our time. So I really enjoy that aspect of like planning out trips and like renting the van, figure out where we're going to stay, figure out what we're going to eat. You kind of become like the TM babysitter dad mode. You kind of take charge and
just the one that's actually guy. Like going to be held accountable if shit goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You're the accountable person. You got the credit card. You're the one dealing with cops and security guards when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
So I loved all that. That was just always an adventure. And again, there's no like, you can't like go to college how to like become a team manager.
No.
You just kind of got to get into it, and it's all about your relationships with the brand and the riders. So yeah, man, getting to work with the same brand for all those years, I feel very lucky to have like almost, over a decade of my life dedicated to working with the cinema team. And, just getting to help like kind of help shape the team in its earlier stage, and then get to work with the riders and just kind of watch them all like grow as people, as humans, and as riders was amazing. And then getting to go on like all these crazy trips all over the world. Yeah, it's like, there's nothing better. So those were my, most of my responsibilities. Yeah.
Did you ever have to kick anybody off?
Ooh, that's a good question. Not from cinema. I mean, we had to let guys, like, unfortunately for Verde, yeah, kind of. I mean, we had to let like Kevin Corrali go. We had to let Dave Thompson go.
Why'd you let Kevin Corrali go? Dude, I kind of know, but I also don't know.
Yeah. It was just probably just like difference of opinion. We couldn't like, I don't want to say like meet certain demands, but there were other offers on the table for him where he felt like he had more opportunity to go elsewhere, and he did that. He went to McNeil. Yeah, he rode for McNeil for a brief period of time. And I think he had a signature bike, and then I don't know what happened to McNeil, if they kind of like fell apart like shortly after. Something happened where it was only like maybe a year or two, and then but yeah, it's one of those things too. It sucks because it's your friends, and then it comes down to business, and then. But the cool thing is like, I'm still like friends with those guys. There was no like bad blood afterwards. I did hear a lot of stories, like guys like John Pova, who I was close with from Etnies, you have to let riders go over the years, and like, big name riders too. And then it would like, they would not be friends anymore. And that sucks. I never lost any friends from having to let riders go, which, I'm proud to say.
Yeah, it seems like you got the demeanor to where you could tell me that I'm off the team, but I'm still gonna love you.
Right. Yeah.
Did you make the iconic Kevin Corrali Verde video? The super famous one. Yeah.
That was done. Thank you. I can't take all the credit. Kevin actually did have he bought like one of the Panasonic HD cameras. I think he had the HMC So him and Justin Burns, we were just talking about Justin earlier. Him and Justin, shout out to him too. Justin was an amazing filmer. So a lot of the footage, because those guys lived up in NorCal together, Livermore. So it's about an hour east of the Bay Area, a little bit out in the suburbs. So those guys would film a lot and submit footage, and then we went on a bunch of team trips, and I remember we just like stacked footage of Corrali on the side. He would always make it his goal. The way he was so meticulous about spots and how he would film things and like what he was wearing when he filmed things. He was like super obsessive compulsive about that. But I remember going on trips and he would film, like, it was his goal to get like one banger clip for this part on a trip. Like, we're gonna go to England for a week. He just wanted one clip that would go towards this part. So it's kind of funny, man. So it's kind of a funny mentality. But in the end, you know, he came through and he came out with like a banger part, and
it was special.
I think Kevin picked the song. He submitted maybe like, I want to say like maybe a third of the footage from like homie clips from him and Justin, and then I put the video together. Whatever year that was, 2014. I don't even remember what year that came out.
Damn, holy shit, 2014, and that was way before. I mean, Danny Hickerson, maybe others, but Kevin Corrali was really early on the switch-footed. Crank arm, switch footed, tooth crank arm 180, and the way you edited it is how that should be done, where it's like one trick left, one foot, one trick right, and then the banger, the opposite crank arm, which is still pretty crazy. But yeah, Kevin was ahead of his time with that shit, and I'm glad you see him back on it now. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see Kevin. Kevin's posting a bunch of crazy stuff on Instagram. He's like back, he's like riding again, and he looks good on a bike still. I mean, the kid's always been super talented.
He's back to it.
Yeah, it's good to see him back on it. So
did you ever get into any serious trouble with the law over the course of your BMX travels?
You know, it's funny. Honestly, no. It was a lot of like close encounters and like almost trouble, but never. I mean, got a handful of like minor tickets, but nothing that's like, never had to like go to jail or never ended up in court. I do have a funny story about something, you know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I remember out in Nashville. Nashville is like a smaller, more conservative town, and Corey and Nathan have been in trouble like all over that town, especially like all the campuses. I think it was Vanderbilt University. We were filming there. I know Corey and Nathan have been in trouble so much there, like so many warnings that they pretty much had like warrants out for their arrest, but they didn't care. They'd still go like ride street there and try to film. And we got caught there. And it was my first offense, so I just got a warning. And they said, you know, if we catch you again in the next year, you'll go to jail. But Corey and Nathan and Andrew White, I'm sure you know Andrew, the photographer from Nashville. Yeah. They all got tickets. They all had to go to court. And I remember Andrew showed up in court, but Corey and Nathan ended up bailing on court. You still got me? I had to lost the headphone. Okay. Yeah. Corey and Nathan ended up saying, screw that. They were no show at court. And the case ended up getting thrown out. So it wasn't a big deal. But I remember Andrew, because he went to court, got a lawyer, he still had to do some form of community service. Whereas Corey and Nathan were like, fuck that, we're not showing up. And then the case got dropped. But because Andrew did go and do the right thing, he got in trouble. So
that's amazing.
But me personally, man, I feel like I dodged so many bullets over the years, just kind of getting lucky and being able to like talk my way out of situations where things could have gone bad, could have, you know, gotten arrested or gotten in real trouble. But luckily enough, I never had any situations where it was like major issues with the law. I can't believe it, thinking about all the fences I've jumped and all the shit that we've done that wasn't legal, but you know,
that's your demeanor and your friendly, disarming accent, and you just explain what we're doing. We get paid to do this, and we mean no trouble, and then you're on your way. It's fine. It's amazing what you can avoid when you are polite and respectful to the law. Yeah, that's good advice. Be nice to the cops when they're kicking you out, and security guards. Security guards don't deserve fucking brats.
Yeah, that's right.
Pussies and shit. That's the worst.
Yeah, those guys, they're all just doing their job. You know, they're doing what they're paid to do. And if you're always reasonable and calm, you know, kind of just figure out a way to mostly just talk our way out of situations and just apologize and just take a warning and get out of there and move on, you know.
Exactly. It does make for it's much more entertaining content if you film harassing security guards, that's pretty fun to watch. But it's
Yeah.
kind of fun to watch in the way of like, I would never do that. Like, why are you saying that to that security guard?
Yeah,
right now? It's crazy.
It's like watching someone else poke the bear instead of you doing it yourself.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. You go ahead and poke that bear. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
So when was your kind of official exit from BMX?
Yeah. So as we talked about earlier, I started my agency in 2020 during the first year of COVID. And then, you know, that was a big year for me. 2020 is a big year. I turned 40 that year. I had like a midlife crisis. Kind of had this like awakening where I kind of was really trying to figure out, like, plan the back half of my life. What's the next 40 years of my life going to look like? The first 40 years of my life was just like a crazy ride and I was just along for it, but I didn't really plan much along the way. I was just kind of bouncing from one thing to another. So I went through this major like existential crisis and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And during COVID, it was such a weird time because you're kind of isolated. You're locked in your house. You're researching. So I kind of like, I remember I was like, I was cleaning up other aspects of my life. I went sober and I was like just researching business and other ways to invest. And I was like, not that I was becoming less interested in BMX, but I kind of felt like I was at a pivotal point in my career where it was time to try to go all in on my agency. So I knew that I needed to step down from cinema, but it was like the ultimate dream job that I could honestly keep as long as I wanted. So it was like I really wrestled with it for a while. It was tough because I was like, man, this is like the dream job. Why would I ever leave? But I knew that for me to like take this other opportunity and try to run with it, I really did need to go all in and try to like build this business and do it right. Yeah. So I noodled on it for, you know, a while. And then probably sometime in like mid 20.
You're good. I'll pause real quick. We're somewhere mid. It's not that bad. So mid 2020, noodling. How long is the noodle? You just said you noodled for a while. What's a while? I'm curious.
If I'm being honest, it was probably longer than a year. I think I probably knew, you know, even like 2019 that I was kind of like wondering like what's next. I still love my job, love the riders, I love the brand, love all the opportunities I got, but I knew that there was something else that I wanted to try, wanted to figure out, but I wasn't sure what that was until we decided we wanted to start this new agency, Press Record Media. So even then I wasn't quite sure what it would be. And then in 2020, during the pandemic, the first half of the year was really gnarly because it was like right when lockdowns first started. There wasn't really much happening in the BMX world or the business world. But then as we were still working on like pre-production and trying to build our business, we ended up getting really busy to where the first half of 2021, we were just doing like a bunch of shoots. As the world was like slowly opening back up, we got like a lot of business booked for Press Record. And I kind of felt guilty because if I'm being honest, I was probably neglecting some of my TM duties. Like that job was always kind of there for me and kind of waiting for me, but I had other priorities and I was trying to build a new business. So, you know, I had a really hard, long, honest conversation with myself, probably like mid 2021. And I was like, all right, I got to step down at the end of this year. I got to do the right thing and like let somebody else, like pass the torch to someone else and let them try to keep going with this. And so we did I knew that I had the budget to do one big trip for cinema. So I brought all the team riders to North Carolina. We did like a big trip here in Raleigh, the Raleigh area. And I remember I was like, all right, I'm going to tell everybody. I wanted to tell everybody in person that I was stepping down. I didn't want to do it like over the phone or whatever. So I wanted to bring everybody out. So yeah, we brought everybody out and I waited till the last day of the trip to tell everybody. It was bugging me, but and so yeah, I ended up stepping down, just took the guys out to lunch, I think it was like the day before I had to take everybody to the airport to fly home. And I was just like, had a really honest conversation with them and it was all good. Like everybody was really supportive and cool with it. I'd obviously told like the bosses, the people at Blackout ahead of time, but I said, please keep this under wraps because I want to be the first person that tells all the team riders. And luckily no one spilled the beans and I was able to like have that honest conversation with those guys. And they were all really supportive and they said, go for it.
What'd you say? Did I quit?
Yeah, I just said, you know, guys, I'm stepping down. It's a really hard decision to make, but I want to, you know, go all in on trying to build this other agency and see, you know, I gotta have like full undivided attention to do it and try to do it right. Yeah. And I was, you know, trying to find a replacement for me, honestly, for about 3 months leading up to that, which ended up, J-Ro is still like temporary, TM for cinema. He's obviously runs Kink, but it's a combination of Jay and some of the guys over at Blackout that kind of handle the duties now. Calvin,
makes sense.
She's the Kink. He does all the videos for Kink, and he helps a little bit with the content as well. So yeah, they've been able to keep things going steady ever since. They've added some new riders, some of the AM guys and some of the guys overseas now. So they're slowly expanding the team now. Yeah, I still keep up with everything, but just not involved, with the business or the day to day anymore. But it's fun to watch it from afar now, even though I'm not necessarily part of the brand.
Yeah, I see myself in 20 years still like watching YouTube or BMX videos when they come out and see what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's always going to be a part of me. It's still something I care a lot about, but it's just not my full time anymore. It's something I can watch just purely from like a spectator,
right?
And just
More
enjoy
fun.
it. Like
I mean,
I went to watch like Crandall's that Royal Rumble thing he did up in Richmond this past weekend.
Yeah,
so awesome to like watch a BMX event without a camera in my hand. I can just like watch riders shred and not have to go make a video right after.
Yes.
Can enjoy
after
it
doing that for 16 years, you deserve to be at a thing and just be like, oh, hey, this is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So I asked you your best year for your business, but what was your best year financially in BMX? What was the most you made directly from the BMX industry in a year?
That's a really good question. It would either have been those Levi's years, like where I had like fat travel budget and like a good gig, and that would have been like 2008, or maybe it would have been like when I was doing when I was working with Etnies for the Etnies Chapters video. That would have been nice. 2014 to 2017. So luckily enough, and big shout out to John Pova from Etnies for this, but he him and I were pretty close over the years, and then I'd worked on a lot of projects with Etnies riders, but never something directly for Etnies. But when he said that they wanted to do a full length video, he asked me if I would be down to be like the lead filmer for the project, and I was like, of course I want to be the lead filmer, but why don't you just wouldn't it make more sense for y'all to like hire a guy in Cali, since you're in California, you have a lot of the team in California. They said, no, we really would like to work with you. And it was John Pova and Mike Manzuri that were kind of in charge of planning out that project. So they were so kind and brought me in and put me on I was on what's called it was like a part-time W-2, to where I was technically an employee of Soltech, even though it was like a part-time filming contract.
Yeah.
So between that and having cinema and having during those years, I was doing a lot of corporate freelance side work. So I think between the trifecta of Etnies, then like cinema and all of my freelance work, those years I was able to, clear 6 figures, mostly doing BMX, but also hustling the side work. So I don't specifically know, I couldn't remember exactly how much I made, but I was able to make, over 6 figures juggling all that stuff. And, I don't really remember between all of it, it was probably pretty evenly split, honestly, between Etnies cinema and then the freelance work is what was able to get me over the edge and make, kind of bring home some of that extra bacon at the end of the year. It was just through the corporate stuff that I was hustling on the side. And some of those years were better than others, where I'd have more of that than others. But those years one of those years would have been my best years in BMX, if I remember correctly.
Did you ever mess up your taxes and not pay for a year or something?
No, I always pay taxes. That's one thing I cannot stress enough, is the tax will hunt you down if you don't pay taxes. So I did get audited one year. This is a funny story. In 2000, so when I was doing the Levi stuff, this is when I first started my LLC. I didn't know shit about business or taxes or any of that stuff. I knew that I had to pay taxes, and I knew that I needed to have a good accountant, which I did have at the time. But Levi's, and a lot of corporations do this, if they want to rinse a lot of money off their books a certain year, they'll usually wait till December, and then they'll try to prepay somebody a big check to go for the next year. And they did that to me. They're like, hey, can we give you an extra 70 grand that it's all for next year, but we want to give it to you in December? I'm like, great, revenue, send it. So they sent it, and I told my accountant, I was like, look, this is a prepayment for the following year for a travel budget. And he filed the paperwork, fine. I didn't think much about it after. And then a year later, I get a letter from the IRS saying, you're being audited because this discrepancy in your income was for this year, and we don't have, what was this for? So, dude, I was sweating bullets. I didn't know what to do. At the time, Levi's couldn't help me because they were the ones that gave me that prepayment for their benefit, not for my benefit. But I did luckily have a paper trail of emails with an invoice that specifically said prepayment for the next year. on the invoice.
Nice. Yeah.
So I sent that to my tax guy. He sent a letter back to the IRS explaining it, and then the problem went away. But if I could not track down that one email with that invoice attached, which I'm so lucky that I had it buried in my sent messages, my invoices when I submitted it, I was smart enough to say it was a prepayment in the line item on the invoice. And that got me out of trouble with the tax man. So since then,
scary.
Yeah. And since then, I was a 26, 27 at the time. And since then, I'm like so buttoned up with the taxes. Like I don't mess around with that.
Are you doing like quarterly estimated payments?
I've done it both ways. When I was an LLC, I did that a lot, but now I'm an S Corp. And with an S Corp, you don't have to do that. Or I literally do whatever my accountant says. And he says, you don't need to worry about doing that for the way that my taxes are currently structured. So,
and you pay, so you're an LLC structured as an S Corp, and then you can pay yourself and write that off from whatever.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's great, man. Like learning, I'm sure you know this just for a lot of the financial content.
I don't know it. I was just coached. I had an accountant that I traded services with, and that was his big thing too. He was like, be an LLC, get structured as an S Corp, and then blah, 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 So the impetus for this happening actually was me seeing the content you made about the Etnies story. Will you tell that story again?
Yeah. So definitely one of the highlights of my BMX filming career was getting to produce this Etnies Chapters film. That was from 2014 to 2017. And I got to give a big shout out to John Pova and Mike Manzuri for making this happen. But John Pova approached me, I want to say it was like 2013, maybe early 2014, saying, hey, man, we're going to start working on the next Etnies full-length video. And as a kid, man, like Forward and Grounded were like my two favorite videos. I loved this style of videos, loved all the riders, loved Etnies as a brand. Like Etnies was always like my favorite brand as a kid. And, getting to go to like Woodward as a camper and meeting like Joe Rich and Taj and all the like Etnies OG teams was so cool back in the day. So yeah, getting to get to work on like an Etnies full length video those years was amazing. So we started production, I want to say it was like early 2015 where we flew. And at that time, the Etnies team was huge. It was like maybe 8 or 10 like legit pro paid dudes, and then probably like 10 flow dudes that were still like part of the extended family, Etnies. So they flew a bunch of dudes out to Cali and kind of had like a kickoff filming trip where we did a lot of filming in LA and San Diego, Orange County, kind of just like general Southern California area to like kick off this project. And at the time, Poe was like, all right, this is a 1-year video. We're going to shoot this video over a year, edit it next year, out. Well, these types of projects with this many people obviously take longer. So 1 year by, and we had probably done, 4 or 5 trips. We definitely didn't have enough for a full length video. So we're getting to like end of 2015, 2016. So then we do, probably like 2016 was a year where we probably did the amount of filming. I think a lot of trips with riders. I was doing trips with riders, and trips. We bring more filmers and photographers.
Fuck.
Where was I? Okay.
All right. So you said that it was supposed to be a year, and then year 2, we're going on trips, multiple trips at the same time. You're on trips. Yep. Manzuri's on trips, I think you said. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yep, I can pick it back up there. Let me know when you're ready.
Oh, we're ready. We're going.
We're rolling. Okay.
We're rolling.
Yeah. So 2016, we were on the road a lot, doing trips in America and doing some overseas stuff. I would take a certain group of riders and we'd go film East Coast stuff. Manzuri was kind of doing a lot of stuff on the West Coast. And then, so I remember it was like late 2016 and John Pova was like, all right, guys, we need to have a plan. We need this video to come out like end of 2017. That's our goal. Or no, I think he said summer of 2017. That was our goal, to get the video out by summer of 2017. So the next few months go by, we're still filming, and we're a little bit behind schedule still to get the video done by the summer. But we were able to get it done just in time for Mirra Cup at the time. So that must have been like late summer, around this time of year, September. So we were able to get the video done literally like just in time where it would premiere like a week or two before Mirra Cup in 2017. And nice. Yeah, man, that was a really, really fun project to work on. We we went to like 20 countries over those 3 years while filming. I didn't go on every trip to every country, but a lot of the footage was being filmed by other filmers and being submitted. So, but I was kind of like in charge as one of the co-producers of that project, was organizing who's filming what, where, and how we're getting the footage and how it's going to find its way in the video.
So
the video was done just in time. Yep. So
there,
the
kinda?
Etnies video was done just in time to premiere at Mirra Co. Yeah.
It ain't doing it. The internet's bad. We'll
sorry,
come
Bobby.
back. We'll
Let me
be
turn
right
my
back.
phone back on. I'm gonna get back to
so hold on, I'll catch everybody up. So the past 2 minutes has just been internet difficulties. North Carolina doesn't get very good internet, but here we are. We switched to the phone, and we're gonna finish this Etnies story.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the premiere. It's 2017 videos due to come out. We one of the coolest things I'll never forget was that Mike Manzuri's, he's close relationship with the skate world. We were able to get our world premiere. It was at the Barracks, which for those that know, that's like probably arguably the most famous skate park in the world. It actually no longer exists, but up until that time, I think it recently went under maybe a year or two ago. But up until that time, 2017, it was like the biggest indoor skate park, or one of the biggest indoor private skate parks in the world, and it's in downtown Los Angeles. So had an awesome premiere there, like really good turnout for the premiere. Video went off without a hitch at the premiere. We had some sound issues, but other than that, the video was great. And yeah, like looking back on it, I'm still really proud of it, what we got to make over those 3 years. So that was a really good experience for me, getting to work closely with Pova and Manzuri on the production and marketing side, and then get to work with the team on like just the coordinating, planning trips, getting stuff done, and getting the video made. So
were you a part of the editing, obviously?
Yeah, originally I wasn't. I was just going to be like a contributing filmer, but then as we got further along into the project, we like Manzuri was nice enough to give me some of the sections. We were like, okay, like what can I do to be helpful, since you're going to be editing, kind of like directing the film and putting all the pieces together? Can I help you like edit some sections? So I edited Aaron Ross's section. I edited and then there was 2 flow team sections for the video. So I edited both of the flow team, like the montage sections with a bunch of riders.
Nice.
I think that was the main editing I did, and then Manzuri did the rest. He put assembled the video, edited the rest of the sections, and put everything together.
It's intriguing thinking about such a large scale project for a big corporate company like Etnies, and all the pre-production, post-production, all the stuff that you don't really think about. I can wrap my head around the going on trips and filming, do that pretty well, and I can edit, but just like I don't know if there's like bureaucratic steps that you have to take and updates of here we are in the process and all that. That's very interesting to me. Did it do Nora Cup like Nathan's part won, right?
Yeah. So it ended up winning Video of the Year, and Nathan got Video Part of the Year that year in 2017. So yeah, that was really awesome. I've out of all the videos I've gotten to work on over the years, I've been like nominated for a few Nora Cups, but never actually won the cup. So it felt good to actually get a project that won Video of the Year.
No shit. That was my next question. I was gonna say, how many Nora Cups do you have? And it's one.
Got one. Yep. One.
Damn.
Video. So
that's crazy. Well, if it means anything, I would have assumed you have like 5 or 6 that you were a part of. So good job.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
You get the Kanode Cup.
Thanks, Bobby.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, I need to know your Mount Rushmore of multiple things. One I thought of earlier is your Mount Rushmore of riders that you have filmed personally, and the 4 best that you enjoyed working with. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one, man. That like spans so many like decades and eras of BMX. Man, it's like I could do one just for like street riders, and I could do one for like everybody else. Because it's so hard to like. It's hard to. It's really hard to do that. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this, but you know, team managers aren't ever supposed to pick favorites. That's another thing. But I'm no longer a team manager.
There you go.
I can kind of say whoever I want. Man, it's tough because the lines are blurry for me, because when you talk about favorite riders, I like automatically I just think of like my favorite people. Not necessarily just like how good they are on a bike, but people I like really enjoy like getting in the van with, or like going on like a filming trip with. So gosh, man, we're talking about like just pure like riding talent, not necessarily like people, like personalities, friends. I'd have to put like, in my opinion, like the best street riders that have ever lived, like currently. And man, this is tough, but I would have to go with like like Garrett, Garrett, Dakota, Edwin. Man, that's so tough. I love D Hart. Like D Hart's one of my all-time favorites, obviously as a person, but just his style is so unique, and he just got something that no one else has. So I would probably say those four for like just my favorite street riders of all time. But when you're talking about like the people I've gotten to work with, I'd have to put like Chris Doyle would be one of my all-time favorites. He's one of my best friends. So I'm a little biased, but he's like one of the best all-around riders I can think of. And then, I mean, I'd have to go back to the other GOATs. I'd have to put like Mirra and Hoffman on that Mount Rushmore, just because those guys are like the icons that I watched growing up as a kid. And then, man, it's like a fourth. I didn't mention him on the street riding list, but like Corey Martinez is another one of those guys that just comes to mind. It's just like so well-rounded. It's been through like all the phases, lived through all the eras. Always had his own kind of like, you know, he was definitely one of the pioneers of street riding and pushing it in the direction that I think a lot of riders followed. And kind of that look. So yeah, that's probably my other four. But yeah, man, the list needs to be way more, because that's just not enough.
It's a tough one. It's a hard question.
Credit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then
Aiken needs to be up there
fuck
too.
yeah.
I mean, gosh, yeah, the list goes on and on and on. I could probably sit here and rattle off 100 more. But,
it's actually crazy to think about. Like those are very common Mount Rushmore answers. And my question was, who have you filmed? And it's not everybody that you've filmed all the GOATs. It's kind of crazy.
Right. Very lucky.
I think I had one earlier in my head about like, it was either like Mount Rushmore of brands or fucking video projects that you've done. I don't know what it is. It's gone out of my head. This has been phenomenal. Will, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that we should?
I don't know. I mean, I know I've said this, but I think just like what I take away from all this is just like the gratitude and just the appreciation that I've gotten to have such a long experience and like a large part of my career. Like the whole first part of my career, I owe a lot to BMX. And, you know, I firmly believe that BMX has owed me nothing back. And I don't think BMX owes anybody anything as far as like riders or filmers, whoever. You're lucky when you get, you know, the time you get, you know, on the projects you get to work on, whether you're a rider or a filmer. But I just feel lucky to get to touch so many different projects and work with so many awesome riders. And like the way I was able to kind of like leave the industry on my terms, I'm very proud of. I didn't really want to become like the salty old man who didn't enjoy it anymore. I wanted to leave it what I felt like was kind of at a high point. And I feel like that I was able to do that. And, you know, of course I still miss it. I miss, you know, being on trips with the riders and the friends, but you know, I always have those memories, and glad just glad I got to have this experience and got to do so many fun projects with awesome riders and awesome brands that kind of brought me along for the ride. So that's the kind of my closing thought, is just like enjoy the time you get in this industry, because the industry doesn't owe you anything, and just try to always make the best of every situation you get the opportunity for.
Boom. I remembered as you were saying all that, the question that I had. I've never asked this before, but you are plugged in, so you know the industry. Who's your Mount Rushmore of team managers? That's the one.
Okay, that's a good one. I've always said like John Pova is one of my favorite guys. You know, he was a TM for longer than I was, so he's got probably more than 20 years under his belt with Etnies, and before that he was Schwinn, and the list goes on and on. John Pova is a great guy. I've been close with Jay Rowe from Kink for a long time. He's been able to sustain that project or the Kink team for a long time and really build up that image over the years. So I would say Jay Rowe's up there. Gosh, man, I have to think about team managers past and present. Mark Losey, I got to give a shout out to Mark Losey. He did a lot for me, especially on his years when he was working with Nike. Brought me on a lot of fun trips. Man. So one more team manager. Give me some other team managers.
I don't know. Like, does Colt have one? I think it's Robbie.
Yeah, like Robbie. I know it was like a combination of like Robbie and Vish and Dakota. I think Dakota was
Dakota's kind of in there. Yeah.
Yeah. If you count Dakota from Colt, like doing the Colt TM stuff, I know he's kind of more like assistant, but I mean, you got to give a shout out to Robbie and Colt for what they've done for BMX over the years. They put out so much rad content and really kind of developed that look and the style, like what a real brand could do.
For real.
They stayed core throughout this whole time, but kind of like broke into the mainstream too. So yeah.
Incredible. Chadwick, I think of Ryan Chadwick with Shadow for a while. He ran a tight ship, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, shout out to Chadwick. He's the man too.
A new one. Bruno Hoffman is a federal TM right now. That's cool.
Yeah, shout out to Bruno too. It's cool. I like it when riders transition to TM roles because I feel like they understand from like a rider's point of view what makes the brand special and like what the riders kind of want from their side. So I think Bruno's probably killing it over there with the federal team. Been on a lot of trips with Bruno. He's an awesome guy, so I'm sure he's like doing a good job steering the ship. So yeah, shout out to Bruno
and Garrett. Yeah, Garrett managing Fiend is pretty great too.
Yeah, Garrett is seriously the GOAT of all time with everything, but the fact that he's putting so much back into BMX, because a guy like him could just kind of just do it, take the paycheck, and go kind of keep it all for himself. But he like really cares a lot about giving back. Yeah. And I'm sure there's been years where he's taken that X Games gold medal money and put it straight back into Fiend to pay his riders and trips. So got a lot of respect for anyone who takes chips off their own table to put it back in the industry for the greater good. So yeah, Garrett would definitely be up there on the Mount Rushmore of team managers and wearing all the hats.
The 8-headed team manager Mount Rushmore. That was good. All right, man.
Yeah.
Go to your concert. Have fun. Thank you so much for doing this. And is there anything that you want to plug or had people get in contact with you for anything? What?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to follow what I'm currently doing, you can follow my company, Press Record Media. We're just at Press Record Media on Instagram, same on like Facebook and YouTube. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me on my personal too. It's just my first name, Will_Stroud on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Hit me up. But yeah, thanks, Bobby. This was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate this. I love what you're doing over there. I love this podcast storytelling forum. This long format form of storytelling. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for the opportunity, dude.
Yes, sir. 3 hours whiz by.
Yeah. Sorry about the internet problems. Hope it's not too big of a pain in the ass to edit this. So
that's fine. I might not even edit it. That's fine. People can come along with us for the journey. I did a good job of like pausing when it was messing up. So
cool.
Save myself some work.
And hey, do you want me to send you any links for all those videos we talked about? I don't want to make more editing.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay. Do you want me to try to send you as many as I can remember we just talked about? Like I have most of it like pretty well organized where you could just download single quick times and not like hundreds of clips. That's
incredible.
Yeah. Okay. I'll send you as much as I can remember we just talked about. I'll just pop you an email right now with some links.
Love it, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Bobby.
Have a later. Hey, thank you for making it all the way to the end, dude. Have a wonderful time with the rest of whatever you're doing. Have a good day. Why do I record these outros? All right. I have nothing to ask. Thank you for your moral support. I'm going to make merch, and you're going to buy it soonish.